Am I the asshole here if I don't go to my sister's wedding because she is excluding my husband? I, female 36, have been married to my husband, Brad, male 40, for the last 6 years. I have a daughter, female 10, from a previous relationship. We were engaged when he abandoned me when I was pregnant to be with his co-worker and eventually disappeared. Brad loves and adores my daughter, and my daughter loves him so much. I'm currently pregnant with our first baby, my second baby. Brad is a paraplegic. He was in a car accident when he was 21. He has, since his accident, gone back to school and currently works as a university professor. He is super independent and possibly the best man that I could have ever married. My sister is getting married, and today she announced that the venue she picked is a heritage building. I told her then it wouldn't be wheelchair accessible. She rolled her eyes and said, "The world doesn't revolve around Brad. It's not his day, it's mine." I said I understand, but I'm not leaving him behind then. She started screaming that I'm trying to steal attention because everyone will ask where is the bride's sister. Her fiancé suggested having the ceremony at the heritage building, but have the reception at another venue, that way Brad can join us. But my sister said no. I talked to Brad. He thinks that I should go, and he and my daughter can have a daddy-daughter date, and he will take care of her. It's a child-free wedding, and we initially were going to ask Brad's mum to watch my daughter. He thinks it's not a big deal, and I should just go and enjoy the wedding. I feel very bad and don't want to go, but my sister will be so upset. Am I the asshole here if I don't go to my sister's wedding because she is excluding my husband? In the comments, Still Actuator 8316 says, "Do what feels right to you. I can see that you love your husband very much, and you have every right to be mad that your sister wants to exclude him. And seriously, how hard is it to rent a temporary ramp to be put in place so that he can go? But since I don't know the stair situation, I can give a pass about that, but there are options." OP says, "It's an old heritage building with lots of stairs, unfortunately. I feel bad for my husband, to be honest. I like the idea of the dad and daughter day. Are you in the wedding party? How does the heritage building get away with skirting ADA laws? Your sister is awful, and at least the fiancé is empathetic. Don't be surprised if there is no wedding." OP says, "I'm not in the wedding party. Sadly, it's 2024, and we still don't have something like ADA in Canada. Since it's a heritage building, they don't care about accessibility. And yes, my husband once a month has a daddy-daughter date. They go to different restaurants each time and do any activities that she chooses. As a mum of a differently abled daughter, I have to say that number one, your sister didn't turn overnight. She has been enabled in her rotten behavior her whole life. Your parents should be ashamed. Your hub sounds awesome though. You don't have to ask permission to turn your back on a dumpster fire. Point out that it's on fire, and the privilege of you, your husband, and their grandbaby's presence will be restored when the fire is out, and then leave." And OP replies, "My parents pay for my sister's big wedding. They did pay for my at-home reception when we eloped as well. They invited everyone, about 14 people, to a restaurant. I talked to them. They said they do love Brad, but it's my sister's day, and they can't force her to change her mind. Yes, I'm disappointed in them. I just don't understand how you can claim that you respect someone, yet tell him to stay at home. You are not welcome. My husband is used to not being included, so he's okay, but I just can't get over it." Mandy Landy says, "Not the asshole. It's well within her rights to have her wedding wherever she wants. It's also within your rights to decline her invitation because you don't want to exclude your husband. That her fiancé was willing to change venues for the reception, but she refused, is what makes her the asshole. If she cared about your attendance, that would be a great way of having the best of both worlds. It's also crazy that she'd treat Brad like he had attention-seeking behavior when he's in a frickin' wheelchair. I'm glad he wasn't offended and upset by it, but if he was my partner and my sister was acting like this, I'd be furious. Especially since you've been married for 6 years. It's not like it's a new relationship. She's more concerned about how OP not showing up looks versus how horrible it looks that she excluded her brother-in-law by choosing a site knowing he can't attend. There is no fixing that kind of ugly. Wait, so I'm supposed to use my wheelchair for attention? Damn, I bought a bright red one on purpose. People mostly ignore wheelchair users like we don't exist. However, the attention we do get is so much fun. Random strangers asking you for your medical history, demanding to know if you actually need the chair, insisting that no, you actually do need help right now. Assuming that because your body is broken, your brain is as well, etc., ad nauseum. That said, all places used for functions should be wheelchair accessible. If a lot of the medieval buildings in my city can be made accessible, then so can whatever heritage venue this is. A ramp, lift/elevator if required, and an accessible loo is often enough. OP not the asshole. Your sister, however... Yeah, the sister is just clinically insane in the membrane on this one. Literally everyone else here is trying to make accommodations for Brad, and she's like, no, I'm a piece of shit, actually, I'm not going to allow that to happen. What is this reason and logic? Get that out of here. All we need to do is spread hatred for this joyous occasion. Part of me believes in my heart of hearts that she chose the venue intentionally to screw him over and so that she could intentionally start a fight where she could yell at other people because it's my day and you don't get a say in my day. I can do whatever I want. I believe she created this situation so that she could yell at other people and make herself feel good, knowing that she's a piece of shit. Not the asshole for this one, OP. And now, on to the update. Thank you everyone for your kind words and advice. It's Mother's Day today, and of course my husband and my daughter decided to spoil me rotten. We went for Mother's Day lunch to my parents. My sister and her fiancé Bob, his name is Babek, he's Iranian but everyone calls him Bob, came too. Brad, Bob and my dad were in my backyard barbecuing and chatting. My mum and my sister were in the kitchen talking, and my sister went on and on about her wedding plans. I asked her if there is any possibility that she would consider Bob's suggestion. She can have her civil ceremony, Iranian ceremony, and all of her pictures done in her dream venue, and then have the reception, which is just dinner, dance, and cake, somewhere else. I told her it means a lot to me if she makes this accommodation for Brad. My sister lost it. Started screaming that I've always been jealous of her and am now trying to ruin her dream wedding. She said I'm jealous because I never had a big wedding and had to elope because I had a kid out of wedlock. I didn't have to. It was our decision to have a stress-free elopement, and she also said that it was my choice to marry a cripple guy, so why should her wedding plans have to change? My mum told her to stop, but she just kept on going. I told her that I'm not coming. I told Brad and my daughter that we were leaving, as I couldn't stay there anymore. Her entitlement sickens me. Now my parents are mad at me for even suggesting, because your sister is under stress. My dad thinks that I acted immature by leaving, and Mum says that I overreacted because I'm pregnant and hormonal. I'm so disappointed at my parents too for not standing up to my sister. My plan is to go no contact with my sister. I don't even know who she is anymore. So, no happy updates. I just cut my sister out of my life and will not be going to her wedding. Sorry for the typos. I'm very emotional right now. In the comments, RNGINX3 says, #SaveBob. Your sister is a jerk, and your parents enable and excuse her tantrums. I'd put sister on no contact and parents on low contact. I hope that this is a wake-up call for Bob. Given life happens, I wouldn't want to be married to someone who is shitty to disabled people's needs, as disability/more disabilities can happen at any time. Bob should ask her what would happen if he became paraplegic. Save Bob. Let them be mad. Their loss. Your sister has shown exactly who she is. Bye-bye. Hopefully your parents will come to their senses and understand why you were not going. Wow, insult your husband, call him a cripple, take shots at both you and your child for a child being born out of wedlock, and then your parents have the audacity to tell you that you're overreacting because you left? What? How the hell does someone even have that much audacity? And this is coming from me, someone who admittedly at times has way too much audacity. How incredibly sad. Sister is a real bridezilla. OP's sister is being crazy, but her reaction aside, am I the only one who agrees moving the entire venue because of a single person is also asking a bit much? Sister is being a bridezilla, but she does have sort of a bigger fish to fry than Brad right now. I feel both sides of this situation jump to extremes fairly quickly. I admit that I'm not well versed in the logistics of handicap accessibility to old buildings, but there has to be some sort of middle ground here. They can install strategic ramps, and sure, Brad won't be able to go everywhere in the building, but there has to be a way to make it work for a few hours. My reading of it is that the building is not at all accessible. Also, accessibility isn't just ramps. It is things like doors being wide enough, disabled toilets, and so on. Brad is being excluded from the wedding because of his disability. It is as simple as that. I'm disabled, and when friends of mine got married, they were looking at venues and decided on them because of the accessibility so that I could be a part of it. I've even had friends who, when moving home, part of their decision process is whether or not I can get in. As someone who married not that long ago, I know how stressful they can be to plan. But you make sure that the people that are going to be there, the people you love and care about most in the world, are going to be there, going to be comfortable, and going to have a good time. It seems pretty clear that she just doesn't want a cripple at her wedding at all. He would be in the photos, in a wheelchair. Oh, the horror! Not the asshole. Calling your spouse a cripple and implying that your daughter is a bastard? What century is she channeling? Sheesh! I understand where the person trying to take a middle ground in this one, saying, am I the only one who agrees moving the entire venue because of a single person is also asking a bit much? I understand moving it is a big ask, yes. She obviously does have bigger fish than Brad to fry right now. But she lost any faith that I had in her, that she had good intentions that were maybe misdirected in, maybe she didn't plan this, when she started being an absolute monstrous turd of a person to OP, their child, and Brad. That just tells me she intentionally set this up so that she could be as nasty as possible to these people and just get away with all of this, because look, the parents are backing her up. The parents are just as bad. Hashtag save Bob, get my man Bob out of this situation, unless he's as bad as her, but, he tried to change the venue. That tells me that he is not as bad as her, at least through this one interaction that I have had with my brain with Bob, or over text on Reddit. Parents definitely need to be cut off from their grandchild for a bit to be taught the lesson of, don't put up with this disgusting bullshit from this woman. And don't you ever defend what is obviously an indefensible action because it was built on the foundation of her trying to piss everyone off. Not the asshole, OP. Am I the asshole for refusing to donate my hair to my aunt with cancer? For context, I'm adopted and have super long and very thick red hair. No one in my adopted family has hair like mine, and it's been kind of a thing for them to touch, admire, and talk about my hair at family gatherings since I was a kid. My aunt has lung cancer, and it's really taken a toll on her. She's lost all of her hair and has talked about getting a wig, but they're too expensive, and she says she wants real hair. My mum suggested that I donate my hair to make a wig for my aunt at Easter dinner, and my aunt got so excited that she started crying. I feel horrible about it, and didn't say anything. We went to this wig place, and the lady said that she could make a shoulder-length wig for my aunt using my hair. I keep it up extremely well, and it's down to my knees. My aunt started crying again, and again I feel so awful. But I really don't want to part with my hair. I know it grows back, but still. No one had asked me how I felt, but I think my mum could tell that I wasn't very excited about it because she asked the lady if she could donate her own hair, and she said she'd need both my sister, my mum's biological daughter, and my mum to donate their hair since it's very thin, and she could only make a chin-length wig with it. My aunt also wants red hair, so the lady said that she'd have to dye it, and that would cause it damage and cost more than using my hair. My uncle then said that it'd make much more sense to use mine. It's been a month, and my aunt wants to know when we can make the appointments. I don't know what to do. I told my sister, and she called me ungrateful and told me to stop being selfish because it would grow back. If I'm the asshole, I won't hesitate to donate it, but I don't know anymore. And edits, people suggested that I clarify, I have knee-length hair, and I'd have to cut all of it off to the scalp in order to make the wig. To all the people saying it doesn't take that much hair to make a wig, it does. One average donation of hair doesn't make a full wig. They match it with the other donations. It usually takes 2 to 3 heads of hair for a full wig. Mine is long enough on its own for a full wig, and my aunt doesn't want synthetic hair mixed in to supplement it. I completely understand everyone that said that I was the asshole for not saying no in the beginning. I'm not trying to justify that, but I want to make it clear that it's extremely difficult for me to stand up to my family. I don't think that I've ever had a say in anything since I started living with them, and that's how it's always been. They never give me a voice, even though I should have spoken up. It always goes without saying that what my mum says will happen. In the comments, not the asshole, but you have to stop stringing your aunt along. Tell them that you are feeling pressured and it's making you uncomfortable and you aren't going to donate your hair. It was completely inappropriate for your mum to donate your hair for you in the presence of your aunt. OP says, I do really want to tell her no and not get her hopes up anymore. It's just that she got so excited the moment that my mum suggested it. I can't figure out how to tell her, and I'm afraid that I'm in the wrong, so I haven't told her anything. Ideally, you can tell your mum how her public suggestion made you feel, and have her apologize to the aunt for not consulting you and for pressuring you. If she won't do that, you'll have to tell the aunt, and people might think of you as an asshole. But that's just them being unreasonable. Be calm and respectful so that they don't have a legitimate reason to think ill of you. Not the asshole. It is super presumptuous and wrong for your family to just volunteer you for this without discussing it with you first. But it does sound like you've been going along with it and have kind of committed to it at this point. It would have been better if you had said right off the bat that you weren't sure that you wanted to do this and that you'd have to think about it. They are going to see you as an asshole if you back out now, but it's still your choice because it's your hair. If they want her to get a wig, could everyone contribute financially towards buying her one? I don't see why this needs to be all on you. I'd imagine making a wig from someone's hair costs more than just buying one. Not the asshole. And this is speaking as someone who has grown his hair out twice to donate. This is your hair, your body, and your choice. If you've kept it this long and maintained it that well, you clearly care about it a lot. It's not on you to cut your hair for anyone else for any reason. It is extremely entitled and selfish of them to just assume that you would be okay with this exchange, since you aren't even getting anything out of it as far as I can see. Just because someone has cancer, or anything like it, does not mean that they're entitled to take away your autonomy over your own damned body. If anyone says otherwise, ask them why her having cancer entitles her to make decisions for your body. Keep asking it until they understand that it's not okay to do this, it has never been okay to do this, and it never will be. Beyond that, synthetic wigs are extremely affordable as they require less upkeep and care. Human hair wigs need more attention because they're made of human hair, and often cost much less. In fact, a quick Amazon search tells me that you can find red-haired synthetic wigs for the low prices of $20 to $60 USD, shipping not accounted for. And that's just looking on the surface. Not the asshole. Jesus Christ, I can feel your stress through the screen. And OP says, honestly, I don't know what to do at all. It's kind of terrifying. I know it sounds stupid, but my hair is the only thing that I have that I feel is connected with my birth family. I love my family, but I have a weird thing with my hair. I know it grows back though, so that's something. I also have natural red hair. It is extremely long, maybe not quite as much as yours, and I honestly started sweating just thinking about this. I get that it's a very selfless thing to do, but there are decent quality synthetic wigs that put no one in an awkward situation. I consider my hair to be a vital part of my identity. It ties me to my gran, as I have inherited the color from her. If anyone asks about me, their comment is always, "Oh, the girl with the long red hair." I think because so few people naturally have red hair, they don't realize how important it becomes to your own identity, and not gonna lie, folks are seriously weird about red hair. Not the asshole, I understand you completely. OP says, thank you so much for that comment. On how old OP is, I turned 17 a few weeks ago. I was adopted when I was 7, and I don't really know why my parents gave me up or anything about them. So there's no contact until I turn 18. I am really grateful to my mother for adopting me and taking care of me, but I feel so awful about this situation. Yeah, this is a tough one, but at the end of the day, I'm all for bodily autonomy and you making your own decisions. It doesn't matter to me that the aunt is dying of cancer. I think that OP should not have been put in this situation. I think that OP should be given the choice as to whether they keep their hair or not, and not be pressured into it. If the mum always says something and always gets her way, then I see her making a few bad decisions after OP turns 18, and OP not wanting to have contact with them ever again. Or just when they go to a funeral home, they'll be pretty lonely without OP there to visit them. It's obviously not healthy and not cool for her to continue to do this to you, OP, so, unless she sees the error of her ways and doesn't attack you for not donating your hair, I potentially don't see a future for you guys together. If and when your spine grows to full maturity, obviously you're 17, you haven't had much world experience, we can all respect that, but you will, through experiences like this, grow to stand up for yourself. Hopefully. And now, on to the update. Thanks to everyone who commented, and especially those who offered to help with sending me their wigs. I talked to my mum about it and she said, "We could have bought hair from anyone. This is special to your aunt because it's your hair." So, I decided to just go ahead and do it. After reading all of the "you're the asshole" comments, I felt even more like garbage than I did before, and I knew I'd feel awful if I didn't. We went to the salon yesterday. I cried. I have a really gross hipster crew cut now. My aunt was so happy. They told her that it wouldn't be ready for a few months, so she bought a blonde wig. She told us she's going to alternate between the blonde wig and my wig to match her outfits. I don't even care if this sounds selfish anymore because I did what they wanted. I hate not having my hair. I look like a boy now. I hope the happiness that wig brought my aunt helps get her through her cancer, but it won't because she's going to keep smoking if she survives this anyways. I don't know how I feel about anything, but I miss my hair. My mum is really happy though, and so is my aunt, so hopefully I'll just get over my hair. I don't know. In the comments, Serious Gyro says, "Oh gosh, what a trashy family for just bulldozing ahead, assuming that she's totally fine with it. Though as effed up as it is, part of me thinks this will probably end up being the best, quote-unquote, outcome for OP. There was no winning in her shoes. If she didn't do it, she'd get a mountain of grief, get called heartless and cruel, it'd always be a thing, even if it's extremely unfair. Damned either way." They didn't assume that she'd be totally fine with it as such, they just assumed that she wasn't entitled to have an opinion about it. I hope that once she gets a glimmer of a chance, she starts lording this over everyone. Don't let them ever say that she didn't do anything. She donated knee-length hair and had that mortifying haircut for ages. I'm trying to grow out my pixie right now, and it's a drag. I can't imagine going through the awkward phase if I never liked it short in the first place, much less the emotional context of her donation. And it's going to take forever for her to grow it back out. I, of my own choice and volition, cut my hair short when my oldest was a baby, kept it short for a couple of years, and then got a really cute pixie cut a few weeks before my youngest was due. I grew it back out from there, and it took 8 years to reach my tailbone again. If it was to the backs of her knees and curly, that child is going to be 30 before she has her hair back. And for lung cancer for someone who smokes and won't quit. Aunt who says wigs are too expensive can suddenly afford a blonde one to tide her over until the red one is made? These people are so selfish. Poor kid. It was the only thing that was hers. I bet they guilt her about being adopted and all they've done for her. It's probably not even about the wig. It's about envy and wanting to have the prettiest hair in the family. That actually felt like a punch in the face for me personally. The fact that she has no problem wearing a blonde wig, that she's going to alternate with that wig to match outfits, I want the worst for her now. The fact that it's just an interchangeable fashion statement instead of, treating it with the depth of meaning that it has for OP. Swapping in and out blonde and red wigs to match your outfits. I hate you, you're a piece of shit. And the fact that she's still going to keep smoking if she survives lung cancer. I would not be donating this. I understand how OP feels now, and it's going to be lorded over you if you don't do it. I expect OP to lord this over them forever and make as big of a deal out of it as you can at every opportunity. That's what you get out of this. You get a get out of jail free card for the rest of your life to use against these people, and I would hope that you do. It's so obvious they don't care about you at all. And, if it led to them being like, get over it, it's just some hair, and they start attacking you for that, that's a bit of a get out of jail free card for me to go no contact with them over this. Although, they'll still hold that against you. They'll still say it was a petty reason. There is no winning with people like this. I hate them, not the arsehole OP. Our next post is by user JazzLikeOriginal358, titled, Am I the arsehole here for telling my stepdaughter that she is welcome to go live with her mother full-time because I won't get rid of my Harry Potter-themed bookcase? So I'm having a bit of a family drama and really need a reality check about if I'm being unreasonable here. I really need the perspective of LGBT+ sensitive individuals because the drama surrounds transphobia perpetrated by J.K. Rowling. My stepdaughter is going through a pretty tough time. The last couple of years have been really rough on her. She's been dealing with bullying at school, being held back a year, not getting along with her mum's new husband, self-harm, and identity issues. Lots of questioning her sexuality and gender. We've been working on getting her a good mental health team of doctors and therapists to help her navigate all of this. Please know that we aren't throwing her to the wolves or the internet to deal with it all herself. I've been in her life since she was 7. We've always had a pretty good, though not terribly close, relationship. I have not taken on a parental role, but have always tried to make myself available for her. Until last year, her mum had primary custody and her dad had weekends with alternating holidays. Last year, due to the issues with her school and mum's house, my stepdaughter requested that custody arrangements be changed. Since she came to live with my husband and I full-time, there has been quite a bit of friction between the two of us. One of the biggest points of contention is my Harry Potter fandom, particularly the bookcase, and my supposed transphobia due to apparently my wrong stance when it comes to the politics regarding trans issues in our country. I grew up in the heyday. So many of my childhood and teen memories are tied to the franchise. My friends and I were all really into it. We attended midnight book releases, dressed up in costume for movie releases, threw Harry Potter-themed parties when we wanted to hang out, etc. In many ways, it shaped the course of my entire life. Those same friends and I joined our high school's botany club because of herbology. That unlocked a lifelong passion of mine, and my career is now working with plants. Over the years, I've collected quite a bit of memorabilia, many of which are gifts, and they've always been displayed on my most prized possession, a monstrously large custom bookcase that my grandfather, a former woodworker, built for me when I was a teenager. I love this thing. The shelves are live-edge black walnut slabs. All around the casing, my grandpa carved beautiful Harry Potter-themed imagery. Owls, cauldrons, shooting stars, lightning bolts, an adorable little rat at the bottom, and nibble marks from said rat, etc. It is both sentimental and valuable. The slabs of walnut for the shelves alone would be pushing $1,000, let alone attempting to value the hand-carved craftsmanship. The bookcase has always been proudly displayed in my home. It currently lives in our living room. During one of our family therapy sessions, my stepdaughter expressed that seeing my Harry Potter bookshelf made her feel really uncomfortable because of the author, and that she was really disappointed in me and my father for being so supportive of a bigot. I apologized for making her feel uncomfortable in her own home and said that I would take down the Harry Potter stuff. So I packed up all of the Harry Potter-themed merch off the shelves, made sure that I didn't have the books or anything on display that said Harry Potter anywhere. I bought some LED grow lights and converted the bookcase into a plant shelf to display succulents. I bought some witchy, but not overtly Harry Potter-themed pots for the little guys so they would go with the shelf. This was not an acceptable compromise for my stepdaughter and has remained a point of contention, with my stepdaughter hurling that I/we, referring to my husband, broke a promise by saying that we would get rid of the Harry Potter stuff. I tried to explain to my stepdaughter that while I do not agree with J.K. Rowling's political stance at all, the media has a special place in my heart because of my childhood association with it, and that the shelf was very important to me because it was a gift from my grandpa. But she maintains that none of that should matter because in 2024, it is nothing but a symbol of transphobia and hate. At first, my husband was supportive of me and my desire to keep my bookcase, but lately the arguments are wearing on him, and he asked me if I would reconsider keeping it in the living room, suggesting that we rent a storage unit to house it in. After the most recent blow-up about it, I kinda lost my temper. I didn't yell or anything, but I did very firmly tell my stepdaughter that this is my home and my bookshelf stays. If it is such a big problem for her, she can always go back to live with her mother. I knew that it was a low blow pretty much as soon as I said it. I quickly apologized, but it was out there. My stepdaughter has been on an emotional downward spiral. My husband and I have been arguing almost non-stop. I think it's mostly stress because he's at his wit's end with how to help his daughter, but he's becoming pretty mean and nasty towards me, telling me to grow up and just get rid of the effing bookcase. I know I was a dick for saying my stepdaughter could always go back to live with her mum, and I suspect that that will be the main topic at hand in our next family therapy session, but am I really being unreasonable in wanting to keep my beloved bookcase? In the comments, someone asks, can you temporarily put it in storage until she's off to college and then take it back out? That way it will be safe and everyone can take a deep breath and calm down a little. And OP says, I looked into storage units when my husband suggested it. For the size and climate/humidity control we would need it in, it would cost us approximately $7,500 to store my shelf until she goes to college. It's cost prohibitive. Why can't you just move the bookcase into the primary bedroom? OP says, it's 7 by 4 by 1 foot, made of solid wood, and we have an L-shaped staircase. The only way that it's going upstairs is if it's completely dismantled and rebuilt. I don't have the skills, knowledge, or tools to do that, and hiring out a task like that is cost prohibitive, especially because it would have to be done again when moving the bookcase back out. Not the arsehole. You need to put that bookcase in a room with locks because your husband is going to sell it or damage it. And OP says, my husband isn't an emotionally unstable monster. I don't believe he would ever do anything like that to me. I wouldn't have married him if he was that kind of person. I have absolutely zero concern about my husband doing anything to it. He isn't that kind of person. He is incredibly stressed out about all of this and has said shitty things in anger, but this isn't some TV show where he and my stepdaughter are going to have daddy and daughter bonding time with a sledgehammer. Someone else says, I think he was just frustrated and worried about his daughter. Hopefully you can talk it out with him and he will apologize for the grow up comment. OP says, that is my impression in regards to him too. I can't imagine how hard it must be to see your child suffering and not be able to fix that pain. I've been doing my best to give him grace due to the circumstances. It is something that we will address when he has the spoons to do so. One question. Who owns or rents the house that you are living in? If it's yours, you can suggest that your husband move out and get a place of his own to his daughter's liking. OP says, my husband and I purchased it together. We are both on the mortgage. We'll then figure out who stays, who goes, and how the equity, if any, is split. And OP says, I don't intend to divorce my husband and throw away a decade-plus long relationship because he said one shitty thing to me during a period of great stress for him. If he destroys the bookcase to show solidarity with your daughter, what will you do? OP says, have him pink-slipped. That is not the action of a reasonable adult. I would be very concerned for his mental state. I wonder if she made similar unreasonable demands in her mother's home or at school that led you to the conflict there. OP says, part of the issues with her home life with her mother involved my stepdaughter demanding that her mother choose between her now husband and her because mum's husband's political views. So this isn't exactly left field behavior. Your stepdaughter needs a massive reality check and probably different therapists. OP says, oof. We're on our 5th. And more on therapy, she meets with a psychiatrist as well as her therapists. We are in family counseling already. Couples counseling is likely to happen if there isn't a resolution to this current bookcase issue in the very near future. Info needed. What is your wrong stance when it comes to trans issues? OP says, I'm kinda middle of the road when it comes to the trans political issues, and mostly take the stance of, I don't know, I have my own feelings about the issues, but as it's not my area of expertise, I am not beholden to them, and I believe these big problems up to the people who have made learning about them their focus of study. Like, I get my feathers ruffled when medically uneducated politicians try to interfere with any kind of healthcare. Like, seriously ruffled. I believe that people facing gender identity issues should have access to free and easy healthcare and therapy to navigate those issues. I believe that society in general should strive to use preferred pronouns, if only as a matter of politeness. But when it comes to things like trans people in sports or having AFAB-only safe spaces, I see both sides of the argument and refer back to my I think this should be left up to people who focus on this and not form a super strong opinion either way based on my lay opinion. Back up to the post, there is an edit that says, "Thank you everyone. Honestly, thank you for those who shared their insight and advice, and thank you to the people who have asked me hard questions that made me think, especially those who asked what matters more, a bookcase or a/my child. I've been reflecting really hard on what my bookcase means to me and why it is so important. I'm hitting some deep truths that I don't think I was ready to recognize about how I really feel about my relationship with my stepdaughter. All in all, I think we just need to shelve things until our next therapy session. But I'll see myself out." And now, on to the update. Someone asked if I could update this situation, and I'll try my best to summarize the past several weeks. My husband and I spoke about the situation. He apologized for being snappish with me and agreed that stepdaughter was being unreasonable about the bookcase. He ultimately agreed to back me about it. He and I are just as tight as we have ever been. I once again apologized to my stepdaughter for the remark that I said out of frustration about her moving back with her mom. I reiterated that our home is her home too, and she is always welcome here. That even though families sometimes fight and disagree, we are family. But the general argument about Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, and my bookcase continued to escalate for a couple of weeks. And then the discontent about that started to bleed over into complaints about me. She started to be more disrespectful and sarcastic. During all of this, we were still attending our family therapy sessions. Our therapist was pretty certain that the misbehavior was anxiety-related and didn't suggest that we give in to the demands to have the bookcase removed and wanted to just keep working on the things that we all have been. Well, stepdaughter's disrespectful attitude hit a climax. She called me the C word and some other choice things within my husband's earshot. My husband kinda lost it on her. I don't think I have ever seen him that angry before. He was bright red and vein-popping angry as he marched her to her room and declared, "You will not speak to my wife in such a way." This was probably the first time my stepdaughter has ever seen her dad angry, let alone anger directed at her. It left her pretty shook. Like that was her rock bottom. We ended up needing to do a couple emergency sessions with her counselor because there was concern about her relapsing with some self-destructive issues she has been working on. But that incident led to us having a breakthrough. Her counselor invited my husband and I into one of her sessions, and she had a bit of a breakdown. Basically, she was dealing with a lot of existential dread and a lot of fear due to politics and it being an election year. That ended up being an excellent opening for us to bond. This is gonna sound silly, but I was able to pull up my social media timelines back from 2016, and I showed her some of the things that I had written or had shared with me back then. She was able to see that I shared a lot of the same fears that she has. So we have all had some really big talks about things like feeling helpless when things are out of your control, about disengaging from the media machine for your own mental health, etc. Things have been on the upswing since then. Before she left for her mum's this past weekend, she even gave me a Mother's Day gift, an adorable little planter that says, "Caution, mandrakes." I love it. I put one of my favorite props in it, and it's front and center on the bookcase now. In the comments, to a downvoted commenter, quote, "Your continued support of J.K. Rowling through fandom will likely be an issue for other LGBT people in your life. And OP says, the only other LGBT person in my life sent me Birdie Bot's every flavor beans in my Christmas package this past year. This poor girl is terrified of being kicked out from another set of abusive parents and is forcing herself to buy merchandise to support someone who wants her dead to make her step-parent happy. This update is horrifying for real. And OP says, I hope you stretched before this reach. Stepdaughter was not kicked out of her mom's home. That was a choice that she made. She is in no danger of being kicked out of our home either. How come no one mentioned that the bookshelf itself isn't actually supporting J.K. Rowling? Most people are judgmental about buying Harry Potter stuff because it enriches her and is viewed as financially enabling her. The bookshelf was handcrafted, so no money was made by J.K. Rowling unless I missed something. Was this not explained to the stepdaughter? Did no one try to educate her on activism? The problem with that is that some people, like the stepdaughter, consider the entire IP to be contaminated. It's not about just not giving JK money to them. Well then, using that logic, nobody gets to enjoy dragons, unicorns, magic wands, flying broomsticks, etc. J.K. Rowling didn't invent most of the things in Harry Potter, she just arranged them into her story. Does that last commenter think that J.K. Rowling invented mandrakes? Because outside of the Harry Potter realm, it's still a cute gift for someone who works with plants, and the folklore around mandrakes is, really old. So is nearly everything JKR used. House elves are brownies from European folklore, goblins, European folklore, house system, UK school system, minus the talking hats, and prefects, UK school system. Issues with a kid aside, the views described at the end of the first post are not middle of the road. That's significantly more supportive of trans people than the average. I feel like she's saying she's in the middle as a peacekeeping strategy, like those folks who say they're neither pro-life nor pro-choice, and then go on to describe entirely pro-choice behavior. Am I the asshole here for leaving my fiancé after I learned that there were strippers at her bachelorette party? What the title reads, basically. I, 29 male, and my ex-fiancé, 29 female, were together for 5 years. We should have been married now in the normal conditions, but I broke up with her and cancelled the wedding 2 days before it because they invited male strippers to the bachelorette party. I personally am not a fan of these parties, but I reluctantly agreed after both groom and bride's side confirmed that we would keep it simple. I told my ex-fiancé that I'm not comfortable with strippers or other kinds of crazy things. She agreed. I also told my friends that if they were to do a stupid thing without me knowing, we would have problems. We stayed at my friend's summer house and chilled there by the pool, did some WoW raids, and played board games. My ex-fiancée and her friends went to a restaurant and then rented an Airbnb. There was no problem during the night, and the next day I asked how things went. She and her close friends said that it was really chill and good. We then returned to the city centre after that. I encountered another bridesmaid the day when I was shopping for a bracelet for my ex-fiancée for her upcoming birthday. I asked that girl, how's everything, as we were in the same department at the college, but we rarely talk now. She's closer with my fiancé than me. She said it's going good and last night was crazy with all the strippers. After saying that, she looked uncomfortable. I asked her about the details, but she wasn't willing to tell me much. I think she realized she shouldn't have talked about it. I laughed, said goodbye, and then left. I confronted my fiancé and she seemed surprised about it. She was denying it first, and then told me that nothing crazy happened, and one of the bridesmaids invited strippers. I reminded her that it was a strict boundary for me. I asked about the details, but she said there was nothing much with strippers, just solo dances and that's it. I told her that I need some time to think. Almost all of the bridesmaids messaged me ensuring that nothing happened when I was on the way back home. Definitely not coordinated. Things happened after that, but in the end, I decided to break up and cancel the wedding. I lost some money since it was only 2 days before the wedding, and things are not cool right now. My head is messed up, I get criticism from everyone, and I have no idea about what to do. My sister told me to see a therapist to process my thoughts and feelings. That is what I'll do next. Some mutuals suggested to me that I should reconsider things and stop being so whiny about such a small thing. I do not think it's such a small thing, especially when they all tried to hide it from me. Am I the asshole here? In the comments, not the asshole. It was crazy with all the strippers is hugely different from it was really chill and good. This isn't just lying, this is a total reversal of the truth. Even her, it was just solo dances, is not the same as crazy. So they are lying, all of them, except the first one. And OP replies, everyone is telling different things. One person says it was crazy, my ex says that it was just a solo dance, another person says that it was different. I do not know whom to believe, to be honest, and that's one of the reasons that I lost trust here. Apparently the stripper was naked, and that even alone is a deal breaker for me. There is no way for me to know what happened that night, and why did she not even bother with calling me or telling me about it? Not the asshole. It comes down to the lies. Also, her friends also lied. One said the truth but knew they messed up and weren't forthcoming with information. Just makes you wonder what, if anything, in the future they would lie about to cover up. You told her that it was a boundary and they stomped on it. Sometimes I wonder if there is an unsaid rule about the marriage celebrations being unfulfilled without strippers. Because there are stories that I've come across, both on Reddit and in real life, where the relationships were destroyed because of things done on bachelor and bachelorette parties. It's a trope in movies and such that bachelor and sometimes bachelorette parties are wild events with strippers, getting drunk, and drugs. This may be the case for some people, but I can't imagine the thought process that would go into thinking that I love and respect this person so much that I want to spend the rest of my life with them, build a family, and have a lifetime commitment that binds generations. But first I need to see a stranger naked and maybe screw them. I can't imagine that whole love, respect, and commitment thing really meaning much if that's someone's viewpoint. She violated your trust. You both agreed, no strippers. She had strippers. It doesn't matter who made the arrangement, she could have told them to leave. And then when you knew, she lied, and then she doubled down and initially denied it. She stretched the violation of your trust further. Not a way to start a marriage. You did the correct thing. If you married her, you wouldn't know if, how, or when she was lying. Not the asshole. Sometimes friends do stupid things without your knowledge. She should have just left and gone back to the OP. That's what I would do, and then uninvite those bridesmaids from my wedding. Yeah, this is just one of those fundamental trust things that's like, unfortunate that it had to come up this late, but yeah, she did cross your boundary, and the trickle truth thing continued to happen, and no one's got a full story. How else could this occur in the future? What other trickle truths and, lies is she going to feed you? It's very much a I'm going to burn that bridge when I get to it situation, but that's your decision to make and I respect it, honestly. I don't think you're the asshole here. It's a crazy circumstance and I'm here for it, but definitely not the asshole. And now, onto the updates. I read most of the comments in the original post, and thank you for the advice. My problem was that not her being blindsided by her friends, but lying. Every bridesmaid told different things, and none of them gave details about what happened. I believe you can understand, it just shatters the trust and makes you think that there is something going on. I thought there was something wrong with me after reading the comments. There were a lot of "you're the assholes," and I thought I should apologize. One of the brides reached out to me yesterday evening. I suspected she saw the post somewhere and recognized it. I knew my fiancée was having problems with her friends since last week, but I didn't know the extent of it. Apparently, my ex-fiancée and her close friends blamed the girl that I encountered at the mall about everything. This divided the group and led to a verbal fight. I'll skip the personal details here, but in the end, she told me that my ex-fiancé and other bridesmaids got sexual with the strippers. My fiancé was the only one who had a boyfriend, fiancé, or spouse, at least monogamously, there to my knowledge. Also, I was told by her that my ex-fiancé was not blindsided with stripper invites. She was happy to see the strippers and was relieved she had an excuse. I do not have proof for all of these, but I got a short video of girls making out with strippers. One of the girls is my ex-fiancé, and that's enough. She's been trying to reach out to me since we broke up. I confronted her again. At first, she denied it again, then it became, we just touched, then, okay, we kissed too, and then, okay, I gave him a handjob. And finally, I was coerced into doing it by these others as I pressed on. I just blocked her after that last part. I did not see any need to learn further. I was hurt already, but learning that I got cheated on hurt more. I'm not sure if it's the full truth even now. I'll never know, but all I can say is that it hurts. I will go to a therapist and not carry my luggage to my next relationship. I lost $15,000 from the wedding-related things and need to focus on filling the hole for a while. Some misogynists made weird comments about women, and I'll just ignore them. Some of the people told me I am an insecure, unfunny nerd for playing WoW on my bachelor party. Isn't the whole point of bachelor parties having one last fun? It was raiding non-stop with the boys for me, not having one last sexual interaction with a stranger or having a stranger's butt on my face or penis. I will not miss out on these during marriage anyways, omitting the stranger parts. And that's it. It's therapy time tomorrow. And thank you for your help. In the comments, Scott's Wahi says, I will never understand why people like your ex-fiancé throw it all away for one night. Well, because they do not want to be married. They want to have that special day and be the center of attention. They want the wedding, but not the marriage. She belongs to the streets. I have a cousin that did this. She explained to me that she never really believed the other guy wouldn't leave her because he loved her way too much. She really thought true love in fairy tale land will conquer all. Delusional. She still thinks that he is wrong and should come back to her and marry her. She cheated on him, and she expected him to be the one to beg on his knees? Yep. He loved her for a decade prior, and she said that she thought he would forgive her for anything because she would forgive him for anything. Even now in her Disneyland mind, she says love should overcome all. I almost envy her to be 34 and still have that thought process. But multiple women in my family agreed with her that if he truly unconditionally loved her, he would have worked through it. And had she ever seriously considered what she would feel or do if her fiancé had done the same to her? No, that's the point. Rules for thee, not for me. As a society, we absolutely overvalue the concept of unconditional love. If it were unconditional love from him, he would have forgiven her for cheating, but is that really something that we as a society wish to allow? For someone to trample and mistreat another person because they are loved? Love in all forms should always have conditions, one of which should be a base level of mutual respect. Tactical Failure 1 says, well, bud, take a break. Sucks this happened to you, but one day this will be a blessing in disguise. $15,000 is a lot cheaper than what you'd lose in a divorce, that's for sure. Much, much cheaper than having children with a dumpster fire like her and watching said dumpster fire influence your kids. It's boggling to watch someone look you in the eye and lie to your face 5 or 6 times in a row and then be shocked that you no longer trust them. It was chill and great. It was just a nice quiet party. Okay, so there were strippers, but nothing happened, I swear. Okay, it was just touching. Okay, it was just kissing. Okay, it was just a handjob. Okay, we had sex, but I was coerced. What do you mean the wedding's off? Absolutely this. I cannot stand people who trickle truth. I've gotten to the point where I just leave and say, it's over, as soon as that shit starts. All's well that ends well in this situation. I don't know if the update was completely necessary in this situation. It kind of just pushed the knife further into OP here and solidified his decision to be like, you know what? Not only am I not talking to you and keeping the breakup going, you're now blocked. I've had more than enough shit shoveled in my ears for one lifetime. I will not be dealing with any more of this. Still not the arsehole OP. Thank you for updating us, but I feel worse after hearing that one. Thank you for getting away from her, though. I respect that. Our next post is by user Illustrious Young 430, titled, Am I the arsehole here for wanting to leave my volunteer position because they gave the paid job to their best friend's child? I've been volunteering in a charity shop since about August last year. I initially started to get myself back into a routine and work ready for being out of work for so long. I really enjoyed it, and it's given me so much confidence. Unfortunately, the manager had to take sick leave because she needs an operation, the assistant manager handed in her keys and quit because no one from the other stores would come in and help or cover a day for her, so she was basically doing everything. The shop had to close for a while until they found someone else. When they did, I came straight back because I had started to fall backwards in myself and I needed the routine again. The new floating manager, let's call her Mary, is 19 and had no idea how to run the shop. Her mum is the company's customs manager for this area. She is also best friends with another lady who runs one of the other shops. She has 2 daughters. One is running another shop. This is not a family-run business. At first, it was very unwelcoming, and they had changed how we worked. I gave it time because obviously she's new to this and doesn't really talk to anyone. Eventually, over time, we became friendly, work well together, and have a laugh. A new assistant manager had been hired who was absolutely amazing, and we get on very well. He has recently gone to another one of the stores to run it as a manager. His job became available, so I asked about applying. Mary got really excited and wanted me to apply. She helped me with the interview questions, gave me the opportunity to run the shop for a few days completely on my own, which went very well. At first, she wasn't doing the interviews, it was her mum and someone else. When it came closer, I got informed that her and her mum were interviewing me. I got excited because I thought I was a shoo-in, as Mary had expressed that if she could pick, then it would be me. A day before, I found out that the lady's other daughter was applying too. I knew from then on it didn't matter what I said or did, I wouldn't be getting it because they are all very close. Mary's mum rang me to say that I didn't get it, the other girl did, making out that it was some random woman, even though I know that it's the daughter, but that I did very well and they wanted to make me lead volunteer. I have been there for months. I have run it on my own, cashed up, opened up, everything. I know how it runs better than Mary does. I want to leave because I feel like I've been screwed over. I'm going to complain to the higher-ups because I feel that it's unfair to basically say that I have the job, but then give it to your best friend's daughter. In the comments, Rare Selection says, "Don't bother complaining. Don't bother going in again. Not the asshole. And don't bother telling them. Let them work it out for themselves. Complaining probably won't do any good. Best bet is to walk away and find a job that pays, or some other charity until you do. And don't give a notice. At the end of the day, just say, 'I'm not coming back to work here,' and leave. Preferably when you know they'll be short-handed because other people are already taking off. It's up to you if you want to give them a notice or a reason that you're leaving, but for me, I'd just say, 'I'm not coming back.' Yes, don't complain, just leave. Any notice is up to you. They will quickly learn nepotism is not a management strategy. We'll suffer, and we'll cover that all up or chalk it up to learning on the job. I do not see anyone reaching out to admit that they made a mistake, and if you stay, you're just a doormat and will have to run the place without pay or recognition." What they all said, OP. Get the hell out of there. Don't show up for these basket of assholes. You deserve better. You are better. You can get back into a routine without falling back into yourself in a place that will love you and will pay you, and paying you is the same as loving you. And now, on to the updates. Thank you for all of your messages. I didn't expect anyone to reply. I left. I went in, and it was really awkward, so when I finished for the day, I told Mary that this is my last day. She was shocked and didn't really know what to say. I walked out knowing that most of the other volunteers will probably leave soon too, either for paying jobs or because they're getting annoyed with how it's run. I'm also going to tell the higher-ups about it because I don't want them to get away with it. It's not the first time, and someone in the comments pointed out that corporate might not know what's going on, and it's not fair to anyone. In the comments, Mary must be really dense if she's shocked. You'd be surprised at how stupid people like this can be. Either that or she thinks that she's manipulating OP. Of course she's shocked. I mean, they were going to make OP the head volunteer. I can't believe OP is throwing away that kind of opportunity. Screw the money, everyone should be scrambling for those unpaid volunteer hours. Sarcasm, by the way. Honestly, this was the best course of action for you. If you're in the UK, it does not sound like there was a fair recruitment process, given that there was favoritism to someone who did not have experience. Nepo hires. Happens everywhere. They usually end up in disaster, but you have to wait for the disaster for anything to change. If it's a large company, they will not be happy that a relatively nothing person, the mother, is pissing up good people for her little Nepo babies. Even though I know it happens, it still makes me angry. Hi, person who knows how to run the store. We decided the better candidate is the person who knows nothing. However, we'd like to give you a sparkly little title and more responsibilities for zero pay. Cool, right? They're trying to protect their backs. They needed someone else applying so they could say that they followed the proceedings and selected the best candidates. In this case, as OP was highly qualified, if the nepotist protege was selected, she must be a great candidate. So Mary cast the bait and OP bid it. And of course they wanted to give OP some crumbs. They didn't want to lose her. OP was already giving the maximum effort for nothing. They weren't ever going to pay her. Yeah, most of the comments seem to be glancing over the fact that she was just volunteering there. It's not surprising a business wouldn't want to give up an employee that was working there for nothing. Yeah, it's unfortunate, and a lot of the charity shops that we have here in Australia also run on an army of volunteers and people that, if they want to get, the doll, they are forced to volunteer at different places for that doll. You gotta work for that money, you can't just sit in your ass. Be a contributing person to society. I just can't fathom how these charity shops continue to get away with it and also be tax exempt because they're part of the church. It really just rubs me the wrong way, And there are people that I know that would be better off working these same hours and being compensated for it, and they're kind of doing it out of passion because they have nothing else to do, but at the same time, give them some money. You already make so much money as a charity shop that runs for free, isn't taxed, and everything you're given to sell is donated. Come on. Anyway, that's my rant. I'm passionate about that, and I believe people need to be compensated for their labor. I believe that OP was never going to be paid for their work, and I applaud them for leaving. I hope they leave, and I hope they never look back. Am I the asshole for not having my boyfriend be a +1 at my best friend's wedding? I, 25 female, have been seeing my now boyfriend, 27 male, who we'll call Joe, for about 6 months now. We made it official 3 months into dating, so I like to say that he's only officially been my boyfriend for 3 months. My best friend, who we'll call Anne, is getting married next month. I'm one of her bridesmaids. It's a small destination wedding, only about 40 close friends and family. The bridal party is set to arrive about 4 days before the actual wedding to do bachelor and bachelorette stuff. The issue came up yesterday morning when my boyfriend started asking what time my flight was for the wedding week. I didn't think much of it and told him. He came back about 10 minutes later and said that he'd have to go on a different flight because he couldn't find one on the same airline or at the same time. I didn't understand why he was looking at flights. I asked him if he was planning on going on a solo or guys trip while I was gone, since I wouldn't be around. He looked confused and then said he was looking for flights for the wedding. I then proceeded to tell him, trying to be as gentle as possible, that I wasn't planning on a +1, and the guest list was already finalized. He's only ever met Anne over FaceTime since she lives in a different state from us. After telling him, he exploded at me. Honestly, it was a total 180 from his usual behavior. He said that it was insensitive of me not to ask for a +1 because we'd been together for so long now, that I was purposefully excluding him and trying to keep him a secret. He ranted and talked in a circle, and I just sat there in shock. What snapped me out of the daze was when he insinuated that I would likely cheat with one of the groomsmen. That's when I got up, got my shit, and started walking out of his place. He freaked out even more and said that we needed to talk about this, and I couldn't just walk out on him. He tried to grab me twice, but I shoved him off. Since last night, I haven't spoken to him. He's been blowing up my phone with calls and texts that I don't reply to. Even put him on Do Not Disturb because it was so annoying. I was pretty solid in believing that I wasn't the asshole, but one of his best friends got my number and texted me that I was being petty and a female dog about everything, that I led Joe on for 6 months. I haven't talked to anyone about this since I wanted to cool down before I got a second opinion, but now that his friend is texting me, I feel like I handled it all poorly. I know that I need space right now, but I don't want to ghost Joe, which his friend implied I'm now doing. So I've come here to get some unbiased opinions. Fellow Redditors, I asked you now if I'm the asshole or not for having my boyfriend be a +1 to my best friend's wedding. Edit to clarify, we don't live together, I just spend the night at his place sometimes. In our last conversation last night, I texted him that I needed some space to breathe, to which he then just kept calling and texting. Because people keep acting like Joe is a secret, he has met my other friends. He hasn't met Anne in person because she lives in a different state, across the country to be exact. They've only met through FaceTime. I've met his parents and friends. He hasn't met mine because they moved back to Mexico 2 years ago. He has met them over FaceTime. His friend saying leading him on was leading him to believe that he was invited. OP to multiple comments on why she is not having her boyfriend as her +1 to the wedding says, I accepted the wedding invite long before we met. This wedding invite didn't just recently happen. Plus, the main reason for why I never asked for a +1 is because Joe and I had only just started seeing each other when the wedding was being planned. A lot went into it because it's a destination wedding in Europe, plus I'm not meaning to dismiss it. I'm pointing out that's why I'm not having a +1, unlike other groomsmen and bridesmaids. They have been with their partners for years, and they personally know Anne. Joe has only ever met over FaceTime, plus there's a lot more than just buying a ticket. I said earlier that this wedding was planned months before we met. Anne planned a lot of things for this wedding that are catered to the fact that there is a limited guest list. Again, I would have been fine to explain all of this, but again, I never got a chance to. Plus, this wedding wasn't a secret. He was aware of it when we first started seeing each other because I had just done dress shopping. Again, this wedding was very planned out because it is indeed very small and private in France. He also met her fiancé over FaceTime, not in person because she's in a different state. He's met my other friends as well. He hasn't met my parents because they live in a different country. In the comments, Chibi Beaver says, not the arsehole. I don't think 3 months is a long enough time frame to include someone as a +1 to a wedding, especially with such a small guest list. If it was a wedding close by, that's different, but destination weddings objectively take more planning, and throwing in a last-minute guest might irritate the bride and groom. His reaction is definitely a massive flag, although I do think that you should have discussed this with him beforehand and explained the reasoning. From what you wrote above, I would say not the arsehole. Since it's only been 6 months of dating, I expected that you had just started dating when the wedding invites came out, and the RSVP was made that you were a party of one. If his name was not on the original wedding invite, and you did not ask for him to be added, then he is not invited to the wedding. I would say his reaction would be a huge red flag for me, and him accusing you of using this away time to cheat would be a deal breaker for me after only 6 months. I would call him and tell him that his reaction was a deal breaker, and it would be best to end the relationship now and to move on. Yeah, what the hell was that reaction? Oh my god, he went sicko mode with that one. He's just like, how dare you don't invite me to the wedding? Oh, we talked about this. We definitely talked about this. You're gonna go cheat on me, aren't you? I can't trust you to go over to Europe by yourself. Where's my invitation? I have to be there to watch you. I understand that there wasn't a lot of communication with you guys about this one, but I don't understand why he assumed that he would be coming. Why did he explode at you? Why did he think it was insensitive of you not to ask when you've only been dating for 6 months? What makes him think that you're trying to keep him a secret? Why did he rant and rave for so long and talk in a circle? Why did he end it by thinking that you would cheat with one of the groomsmen? Why does his brain think like this? This is someone that I would be happy to just absolutely walk away from, block, and never talk to again because the mask slipped and the bullshit started flying out of his eye sockets like no tomorrow. What's next? You can't trust me to leave the house because if I do, you're gonna go kill me and dump my body in the woods? Jeez Louise, get away from this guy. And now, on to the update. So the general consensus was that I wasn't the asshole. Unfortunately, the original post got taken down on the main Am I the Asshole subreddits, but it's still up on the other. Still posting on the update on both though. Some of y'all had some stuff to say about me saying that I need help communicating because I shouldn't have walked out. Have your opinions, but never let someone scream at you and just sit there and take it. I'm realizing that's emotional abuse. About why I never pushed to have a +1? When the wedding planning was starting, Joe and I had not met yet. By the time that we met and made things official, the wedding planning was finalized. I never hid the wedding from Joe or the fact that it was very small. Someone said, most normal people plan on bringing their significant other to a wedding. And maybe that's true, but never automatically assume that since your significant other is invited to something, that you'll be going too. The wedding was heavily pre-planned because, again, it's a destination wedding. Anne is originally from France and is the primary reason why it is a destination wedding. I talked to Anne about this shortly after posting, and she agreed that I'm not the asshole. She said that if the roles were reversed, she would never expect her significant other of less than a year to be invited to an important event. So on Friday, I texted Joe asking to meet up Saturday morning to have a discussion about everything. The morning he tried to get us to meet at my place, but instead, I got him to agree to a meet at a local cafe. A lot of you brought up how he tried to grab me, and that's a big sign that he could get more physical in the future, and I didn't want anything to be left to chance. He got there early and tried to hug me, which I didn't allow. I got the ick at the thought of him hugging me. We did a bit of small talk, but got pretty much to the point once we sat down. He did apologize for blowing up, but in the same breath said that I shouldn't have left. I countered that he shouldn't have tried to physically stop me from leaving twice. He said what else was he supposed to do? That set the tone for the whole conversation. He went on to say that me just walking away was a clear indication that I didn't respect him. I then pointed out that he was not letting me explain why he wasn't invited. This is when we started talking in circles. I told him how the wedding was being planned long before we met, how by the time we mutually agreed to be exclusive, they had everything finalized, especially the guest list. He said that I should have asked for Anne to change it anyway. I asked him if I ever gave him the impression that he would be attending. He was silent for a while, and then admitted that he just assumed that since he was now my boyfriend, I would have told Anne to invite him. I told him, then wouldn't I have said something if he was invited in the past 3 months? I realized we weren't getting anywhere. I told him I wanted to break up. To paraphrase, I said something along the lines of, I understand you were hurt that I didn't invite you. I'm sorry that we didn't have a clearer conversation. I do wish that we could have had a calmer conversation. However, I don't feel safe in this relationship because of how you reacted. I don't think this relationship is good for either of us if you feel betrayed and I feel unsafe. He didn't take that well. Joe's response was, if we broke up, I wasn't getting my stuff back. I told him I didn't care because honestly, if he wants to keep some of my underwear and use toothbrushes, then okay. I then asked him not to have his friends text me either. He then went from pleading to have another chance to accusing me of never wanting him. I just stood up, told him that I wished him the best, and left. Ended up going for a 2-hour run when I got home because I still felt stressed. Blocked his number, his friends, blocked his Instagram, deleted the pictures of us on my feed, changed my Facebook status to single, had a cry, and have been watching Netflix since. Something I learned from this, your first fight with your partner tells you everything about them. Our first fight told me Joe was explosive. Maybe if he hadn't blown up, we would still be together. I'm not going to dwell on it though. I know it's good to get out while you can because, as a lot of you pointed out, the fact he kept trying to overpower me twice says a lot. I'm honestly glad that I broke it off. And as some of you said, it took him 6 months to show his true colors. I can't imagine if he did come to the wedding and then a year later, I found out he's like this and have to look at wedding photos with a guy who is fine with blowing up. I'm going to stay single for a while now. I have a wedding to look forward to. My focus is on supporting Anne and making sure that she has the best wedding ever. I may update when the wedding happens to let you guys know how it goes and if Joe tried anything else. Thank you again to everyone for their opinions. In the comments, Patch End says, don't forget to always see who is at your door before you open it. keep yourself safe. And good for you, darling. Have a wonderful time at the wedding. Congratulations to Anne, and I hope they have a long and happy marriage with no crazy. OP replies, thank you. I do have a dog and a roommate, so that's some extra security already. The roommate and I talked before about getting a Ring camera, but this experience and other comments have solidified us getting one. I have to say that I'm proud of you, and this is why I say this is what dating is for. This is the interview process, and so as you were going along with it, you see that he wasn't the candidate for you and you cut him loose. Good for you. All the other people are going to say, the naysayers, listen, they just want somebody by their side to say they love them because they have no self-love or self-esteem for their internal selves. That's all their opinions and stuff. Lack of love and lack of self-esteem. Have fun at the wedding and have a hookup if you want, but have fun. Not the asshole. Normal people don't blow up on their significant other because of an assumption. Icing on the cake was him accusing you of playing him the whole time because you told him that you felt unsafe. I don't know how to explain it, but all I know is all signs point to him being a narcissistic manipulator. I get people lose their temper, and I can be pretty forgiving, but 1, trying to grab someone? No. And 2, doubling down. That's when someone shows you who they really are. We all have bad moments. It's how we react after those bad moments that makes us who we really are. This guy is a giant walking red flag. And having his friends harass her through texts. Calling her a female dog? She seems to have stumbled upon a nest of incels. I had a destination wedding. My save the dates was sent out about 18 months in advance, invites a year in advance, and my guest list was fully finalized at least 6 months out as everyone who was attending had booked their flights. 2 of my bridesmaids got into new relationships around a few months out from the wedding. They never asked me for a +1, and their partners never took issue with it. In fact, those 2 bridesmaids ended up traveling for several weeks together after the wedding. Sorry, but destination weddings take time to plan. People can't just decide to attend last minute. OP totally did the right thing. He was a walking red flag with his reaction. There's a reason why only married couples always have to be invited, and engaged couples if they have been for a while. It's really hard to keep up with other people's relationships, and people often break up or start dating between sending invites and the wedding. I mean, these days it's more blurred because people live together for a long time before marriage. And some just have money and can give +1s to everyone. But not everyone needs an invite because they are dating. All's well that ends well in this situation. He was bad news from the start, and he was bad news at the finish. He couldn't even control himself at the apology lunch that you guys were doing. He immediately had to flip the switch once again and start talking in circles. I don't know why he thought reverting to the same strategy would be a winning combination here. He's like, I've already tried to overpower you and talk shit once. Certainly doing it again is going to have you running back into my arms. What's wrong with this guy? Is he brain dead? I want to know the thought process. I want to dissect his brain and see what bullshit he has stored inside because it doesn't make any sense to me. Why do these abusers assume people are so dumb not to see the shit in front of their eyes and see them for what they are when they act like this? Boggles my mind. My mother ruined my Bachelorette trip. So a few months back, I had a Bachelorette trip to Puerto Rico. 2 of my bridesmaids were able to go, and my mother and sister came as well. I asked my mum to be the maid of honor since I thought it would help create a closer bond between us getting ready for the wedding. My whole goal was to have everyone get along and just have a good time. I should have known that this was going to be a disaster. A couple of weeks before the wedding, my mother started bashing all of my bridesmaids and friends. She was particularly focused on one that was actually going on the trip. I ended up paying for my mum, sister, and my own flights to help the burden of my mum having to pay for both her and my sister. The plan was that my mother was going to pay for both her and my sister's hotel. My friend reached out to everyone to try and plan something for me without me getting involved. I would like to add that I planned the Bachelorette trip as the bride. When my friend reached out to my mum and called her, she wanted to help as much as she could. My friend is actually Puerto Rican, so she was going to be a huge help with this trip. At the time, I did not know about this call. My mother called me at 3 a.m. after having that call with my friend that day to tell me that she's not been doing her maid of honor duties because she was observing everyone and everything. She then said, as the maid of honor, she should be planning the Bachelorette trip. I found this conversation odd, but I said, okay. I was relieved that she finally stepped up to help me with the trip. My mum did say before the call ended to not tell my friend that she talked to me about this, which is why I did find it odd as well. The next day, my friend called me and told me that she wanted to make sure that I had a great bachelorette, that to remember, it is all about me. She wanted to help me with the excursions that I wanted to do, and I told her that my mum wanted to plan as well so that they could work together. I saw my mother the next day, and she went on a rant about how my friend was disrespectful and said that she was not letting a little girl control her on this trip and made it seem like something was wrong with my friend, and how she did not want to wear her stupid t-shirts during the trip. She started raging and telling me she doesn't want to go in the rental car with my friend and wants to take an Uber. Her words were, "Your friend is disrespectful, and I will beat this female dog's ass." This automatically started stressing me out. She said she didn't like my friend and she was disrespectful and has mental issues. I ended up calling my friend and asking her if she could cancel the rental, and she said she could not. I created a group chat for the ones attending the trip, and my friend was asking questions about what activities we were going to do and how excited she was, and my mum and sister were instantly annoyed. My mum was supposed to plan the activities that we were going to do in Puerto Rico. She refused to let my friend do it or participate in helping, and again, my friend is Puerto Rican. Fast forward to the first day of the Bachelorette trip. When we arrive, my mum's luggage was missing that had all of her toiletries. She was upset about it. When we got to the hotel, I let everyone rest since it was an early flight. My friend got there a little later in the day, and I met up with her and my other friend in the lobby. I called my mum and sister to meet us downstairs so that we could go with them to replace the toiletries that were lost and to have dinner. As me and my two friends were waiting, my mum came downstairs and stood behind my Puerto Rican friend and said hi to her so low that she could not hear her. I hinted to her that my mum was standing over and behind her while she was sitting on the lobby couch, which I thought was weird. She turned around and said hello. My mum instantly just said, "Okay, I'm leaving now. Go be with your friends." She literally ran off. My sister did not say a word. Trust me, when I tell you the energy was so off that you could cut the tension in the air with a knife. I asked my friend what was going on with her and my mum because something just felt really off. She told me that she didn't really know her, so she didn't understand why. So I decided to just go to the bar with my friends and wait for my mum and sister to get back. 5 minutes later, I get a text from my mum saying, "Shame on you. You betrayed your family. You chose a nobody over your own family. I am disappointed, and your sister and I are out of the wedding." I responded and said that I did not and asked what the problem was, but I was then ignored. I started crying hysterically because I did not want my bachelorette to be like this. My friends tried to cheer me up and took me out to dinner. I decided to let things cool off and try to smooth things over in the morning with my mum and sister. I went to my mum and sister's room and I knocked on the door several times and kept going back to knock on the door. I also called each of them and got no answer. I even waited around the lobby to see if I ran into them, and nothing. I called both of them again later in the afternoon, and finally my sister picked up. I asked if they were okay and if we could squash whatever happened and then just move forward with plans. I asked why didn't they answer me for hours, and they said that they were sleeping, which I knew was a lie because I heard someone look through the peephole when I knocked earlier. My sister said they are not doing any of the activities that I wanted to do and that they were having lunch and would not tell me where they were. I felt like shit. My mum planned nothing that she said she was going to plan. My friend even texted and reached out to my mum and apologized for whatever my mum thought she did and called my mum and she did not answer. My friends all scrambled to try to make the best of the rest of the trip for me while my mum and sister were MIA. The day before we had to leave and go home, my sister reached out to get their plane tickets which I had purchased. I sent it to them and was immediately upset. My mom asked me to put my credit card down for her in my sister's hotel and then said that she would pay me back. I honestly think that she had no intention of paying me back because she is my mother. They ignored me during the entire trip and now demanded their plane tickets. I decided to change my flight and leave earlier. I couldn't sit on the plane with my mum and sister and then act like this was normal. My sister called and asked if I was going to get an Uber to the airport, and I told her no, I have a different flight. My mum finally appeared and called me and said so many hurtful things. My mum told me that I was always disloyal, how I interpreted everything wrong, I overthink, I don't care about her and my sister, how I was feeling is wrong, and called me a liar and hung up in my face. My friend started to tell me about the phone conversation that she had with my mum prior. She didn't tell me out of respect for my mother because my mum asked her not to tell me about the phone conversation. My friend said that my mum was talking bad about me, my fiance's family, and how I was planning my wedding. My friend was put in this awkward position. Ever since that trip, I've not spoken to my mum or sister, and they didn't show up to my wedding. I only get a text from my sister to tell me to pay both her and my mum's phone bill once a month, and that is it. In the comments, my eyebrows rose when your mum called your friend a little girl. Those are big words from someone who allegedly needed their trip paid for. Are you cutting them off financially? It's okay if you do. They don't treat you with love and care, so why should they receive it from you? OP says, I plan on cutting them off. The only thing left to cut off is this phone bill situation. I'm nervous about doing it because it's going to create more conflict that I don't need. I gotcha. Send them a text and/or registered mail saying that you will no longer pay for their cell phone bills as of this date, and then mute them on your phone, in case they type anything incriminating and you need it for evidence, and then block them on social media. Get cameras for your property, don't answer the door if they stop by, call the cops if they escalate. They can't cause conflict if you're avoiding them. OP says, thanks for the advice. Excellent ad 1132 says, you tried your best, and so did your friend, and your piece of shit egg donor and shit sister ruined it. It's time to cut them off for a long while, at least until you forget how they treated you and gaslight yourself into thinking that it wasn't that bad. But for now, cut them off and do not pay for their phone bill. Since you're not family to them, why would you pay for anything of theirs? They already had you pay for the trip and their hotel stay, so I would say that you were done with their crap. Your mother totally ignored the fact that the bachelorette party was about you and not her. Did I miss something? Why would you pay their phone bills at all? OP says, it's something that I've been doing for 10 years since I was in college. My mother made that my responsibility when I was living with her and going to school. It was a real struggle to do when I was in college. She never took that responsibility back. As others suggested, it is time to stop paying her bill. Just tell her that you'll deduct the cost from her and her sister's airfare since she absolutely ruined your bachelorette trip. I hope your wedding was all you wanted it to be, without the drama twins, and you and hubby have many years of happiness. And now, on to the update. So thank you for all of the advice, commentary, and inputs. I wanted to follow up on the original post that I posted. So far, I have gone no contact with my mother and sister. I ended up getting a new phone line and phone number. I texted my sister to let her know that I will no longer be paying for her or my mother's phone bill anymore. I then cut off that phone and moved on with my new phone line. I blocked and removed them from all social media as well. Once I did that, my mother decided to appear and attempt to call me at my job, stating that there was an emergency and that she needed to speak with me. I told my colleague that I would not be answering the phone and that there is no emergency, and to not answer my work phone line if she does call. After that, she has not made any more attempts. I believe she tried to call to bully me into paying their phone bill and to try to do the guilt trip and shame me like she attempted to do on the Bachelorette trip, but I was not falling for it. I also cut off my sister's Apple Music, which I know she would be pissed about, and it just all felt so good. I also found out that my mother added her husband's phone installment plan to the bill a year ago without telling me, and that literally pushed me over the edge. I didn't notice it because it was an installment plan that only brought the bill up $35. That $35 a month adds up over time. This added up to me paying $500 for it before I cut everything off. I mean, who has their daughter paying for their husband's brand new iPhone 14? How does anyone sit there comfortable doing that to their own daughter? This I will never understand. It has been 7 months so far since I decided to go no contact. I can say that my life has been more peaceful with no drama. It has brought me and my husband closer together. I can truly say that I'm happy and starting to get back to being me again. My relationship with my mum and sister was toxic and put me in a really dark place. Everything that happened during that trip has opened my eyes, and I'm looking forward to better things, and I plan on redoing my Bachelorette trip the right way. In the comments, Texas1 says, I could have written this. I'm on month 4 of no contact with my mum and sister. Life is peaceful and drama-free. And OP replies, you had issues with both? What made you make that decision? My sister is an avid COVID denier and believes that Democrats hook assaulted children to a machine to steal their adrenaline. Dumber than a rock. She involved family members in that nonsense online and then refused to apologize. It was the last straw to me. She can't be around my family or kids. Mother took up for her keyboard warrior daughter, who sponges off her for almost 10 years now. That's the very short version, and I should have cut them off 30 years ago. My life would have been more peaceful and less embarrassing. Peter095837 says, life can be more peaceful and easier once you cut people off who are massively entitled and terrible. 'Cause damn, this mother really is full of entitlement, manipulation, and bigotry. I never met entitled people before, but I can't imagine how I would respond if I ever dealt with one. Good for OP at the end of the day. I've cut off my mother, and it was the best decision in my life. I should have done it sooner, but it's better late than never. Quotes, asked my mum to be the maid of honor since I thought that it would help create a closer bond between us getting ready for the wedding. Oh, I just knew from this the rest was going to be a tire fire. Mum absolutely was being a pill before this, and OP asked her to be the maid of honor in the hope that it would rein in her behaviors. Quote, since I thought it would help create a closer bond between us, and that was the red flag that told me that they were not close at all. It's like asking someone who you meet on the train to be your maid of honor because you want to be their friend, but worse. One of my cousins had a near complete stranger as a groomsman because his wife wanted an even wedding party. So while they were renting the suits, a dude that was in there was getting his son measured for prom, and my cousin was talking to him and just invited him to be a groomsman. Our next post is by user AnonAnnie81877, titled, Am I wrong for who I chose to be my flower girl? My fiancé, 35 male, and I, 30 female, have been dating since I was 20. We got engaged last year and have been slowly planning an intimate wedding for February of 2024. We have a guest list of 35, close friends and family only, and we each chose 2 people to be groomsmen and bridesmaids. He's having his sister's son, 6, as the ring bearer, and I decided to have my sister's daughter, 4, as the flower girl. I have an amazing relationship with his family and a very strained relationship with mine, although it's getting better with my parents. I had posted an announcement on our wedding Facebook page about the choices. It was just a photo of the kids looking through the dresses and suits with their mom. 2 hours later, I got a call from my mother asking where the photo was taken and if it was where I was getting my dress. I told her that it was them picking out their outfits for the wedding. She said, "Oh, that's cute," and then told me that she had to go to an appointment, so we wrapped up the conversation, and that was that. 30 minutes later, my phone rang from a number that I didn't recognize, so I ignored it. I don't pick up strange numbers. I saw they had left a voicemail, so I listened to it. It was my brother's wife. Brother is an abuser, so I don't speak to them unless forced to. She was livid, to say the least, yelling and crying about the fact that I didn't choose her son and daughter, and that they would never forgive me, and that I am no aunt to them. I chose to ignore this, as I don't have a relationship with them, and I don't owe them any sort of explanation. I then got a call from my brother, which I didn't answer either. He didn't leave a voicemail, and I didn't call back. 2 days later, there was a knock on my door, and who guessed it? It was my brother and his wife. She was demanding to know why I didn't pick their kids and why I gave some random kids their spots. I calmly responded that it wasn't their spot and they aren't random kids. She began crying hysterically and saying that her kids deserved it for me being such an awful person. I told them that her and her brother weren't even invited and they needed to get off my property. My brother was silent through this entire thing. I told my fiancé what had happened, and when he got home from work, showed him our Ring camera footage and showed him the voicemail. I turned off my phone for the rest of the day/night and didn't turn it on until the morning. When I turned it on, I was bombarded with texts, calls, social media messages, and posts about how awful I was for punishing the children and how I went crazy on my brother and sister-in-law. I posted the Ring camera footage and the voicemail and tagged everyone who made a post and sent me a text. I got several apologies, but I frankly didn't care. Our guest list went from 35 to 25 in a matter of minutes, and I am fine with it. My mother and father are mad about the situation/drama, but are, for the moment, staying out of it and telling us to figure our own shit out. I still have family and friends and all of the brother and sister-in-law's flying monkeys harassing me about not wanting their kids in my wedding and that I'm a monster for doing this. So Reddit, am I wrong for punishing my niece and nephew and choosing my fiancé's niece and nephew to be a prominent part of our wedding? In the comments, Ren Win says, "You're not wrong, and frankly, your sister-in-law sounds unhinged, but I don't think your parents are staying out of it as they say. If you don't have contact with your brother or sister-in-law and they aren't even invited, then how did they find out? And you're supposed to believe that them finding out a mere half an hour after your mother rang to ask you about it is just a wacky coincidence? Sounds more like your mother rang them straight after hanging up with you, shared the news and picture, and worked your sister-in-law up over it, hoping her grandkids would get a special place in the wedding too. Meaning brother and sister-in-law would also have to be invited." OP replies, "My wedding Facebook page is public. They didn't know that they weren't invited until I told them. But you're right, that is exactly what happened. I don't think she worked her up though. My sister-in-law was always this crazy over anything since she's had her kids. It wasn't exactly surprising that she reacted to it this way, but I also hoped that she would maybe just realize that it's not up to her." So your brother wasn't invited and likely knows that and wanted his kids in a wedding that he couldn't be at? OP replies, "He seemed pretty indifferent and was silent the entire time. It was his wife who was losing her shit over it. His wife doesn't know about him being an abuser and believes that since I had said in a post I would be sending out invitations to my immediate family, that it included them." Hang on, so the wife really has no idea why you don't see or speak to him. So this is actually surprising to her? Well then I get why she would be a bit surprised, and I'm sure actually hoped for an eventual relationship with you. OP says, "Yup, she thinks that I'm always too busy to come around, or that I'm mad at my parents if I don't show up to family events and holidays. She made it clear that she doesn't believe abuse victims if she's close with abusers, when we had been close, which is a problem in itself, but not mine to try and fix." Edit to add, we did have a relationship which faded away as I was made the designated babysitter for them, unpaid, and when I started to say that I was busy or working, she slowly quit reaching out. That was around the same time I found out/therapy uncovered about my brother's actions. And now, on to the update. I had a few messages asking, so I figured that I'd add it in here. The restraining order is in place. I got the call this afternoon. I posted a few days ago about the predicament that I was in with my family regarding my wedding. Well, in the 3 days since I posted, it has escalated far past what I ever thought. After I blocked everyone and uninvited people, I ended up deleting my wedding page and creating a private group chat with everyone who was still involved, which worked out perfectly. I told my mother that I was going low contact with her and my father after everything that happened, and she was of course upset and wanted to talk it out. I told her when she could admit that she was wrong and apologize, then we could. I went into work a couple of days later, yesterday. I work half remote, half in office, and got called into my boss's office immediately. He told me that he was getting emails and calls about me from different people and that he was putting me on leave until I get this figured out. I had sent him an email about the entire situation when it happened, so he's completely understanding of it and doesn't want it to affect my work. When I got home, my brother was waiting for me, alone. I sent a quick text to my fiancé telling him my brother is here at the house, and then started recording as I got out of my car. I asked him what he wanted, and he told me that he wanted to talk and asked if we could go inside. I told him that we were fine talking in front of the house, and he rolled his eyes at me. He asked why I was excluding his children, and I honestly just about lost it. I asked him if he was seriously asking me that question and if he truly thought I was that delusional. He started yelling at me that he's never done anything to me, and that I'm a filthy, no-good liar, and that it's a wonder my fiancé even wants me. I raised my voice and told him that he is an effing hypocrite and an abuser, and that him and his wife are a match made in hell. He started walking towards me, and I told him that if he steps one more foot, I'd be calling the police. I was honestly terrified. As he was walking to get in his car, he said, "You know, it'd be a shame if something were to happen to your car on the way to the wedding," and he left. I waited until I couldn't see him anymore to make sure that he was actually leaving, and then I called the cops. I gave them a copy of the video and all of the other evidence, and asked if I could get a restraining order or a no-contact order for the both of them. I'm not sure if it'll be possible, but here's hoping. I'm debating cancelling the wedding and going to the courthouse instead. Still having our close family there, and my fiancé's niece and nephew can still be a part of it. I was hoping to be able to update in February and tell you the wedding went perfectly, but I don't know if that's going to happen now. In the comments, Bulky Caterpillar 4240 says, "If you can't get the restraining order through the police, talk to a lawyer. Your brother and sister-in-law are completely insane. He threatened your life, and that is a serious offense. You should consider sending that recording to your family and everyone invited to the wedding." And OP replies, "Yes, they said that it was more than likely to be approved and issued in the next few days, but they can't give us a for sure yes until they get the okay. If it isn't approved, I'll definitely go talk to a lawyer." Honestly, at that point, I would send a message to your mother stating that after being physically threatened by your brother, you and your husband have no choice but to go completely no contact with them and your brother and sister-in-law. If they show up, they'll be escorted off the property by police and charges pressed for stalking, harassment, and the threat of bodily injury. OP replies, "I'm not going to tell my mother anything. I've already blocked my parents, and I've always been no contact with my brother until all of this happened." Jesus. I'd recommend switching venues if you can, but don't cancel your wedding in favor of a courthouse unless that's what you want. This is about you and your fiancé. Don't give your brother and his wife that power. No effing wonder you don't have a relationship with him/them. No one is entitled to participation in a wedding except the people getting married. I hope this all works out for you. I'm sending you good vibes. OP replies, "Courthouse is definitely last case scenario. I've been looking at a couple of different other venues, but I'm just not sure. Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate the good vibes." OP's parents failed in protecting her growing up and into adulthood. What a mess. I hate it when the victims and the innocent are the ones to have to pay, while the wrongdoers don't even get slapped. Exactly. "We're not taking sides, you both need to figure this out yourselves" is fine for an argument over what to have for lunch. It's decidedly not fine for one person threatening harm to another. It means the current situation is within the realms of acceptability to me. Even if it's not ideal, it's not bad enough for me to want to change it. In cases of abuse, it means the abuse is acceptable, that they see no major problem with it. Doing nothing is not being fair to both parties. It means you side with the status quo. It sides with the abuser and against the victim in abuse cases. Pretending, or actually believing, that this relieves you of any culpability is just the disgusting, self-serving cherry on top. Am I the asshole here? My friend keeps on talking about my ex in front of my fiancé. So my 29 male best friend Jess, 29 female, keeps mentioning my ex, 29 female, in front of my fiancé, and I'm thinking of cutting her off. I want to know if I'm overreacting or if Jess is in the wrong. For context, Jess and I went to the same high school and the same college. We were friends in high school. However, since we both went to the same out-of-state college, we became best friends since then. We have always been there for each other during the best and worst times. However, things have always been platonic, and she's more like a big sister to me who made sure that I stay on the right track. I have only been in 2 long-term relationships so far. One was with my ex Lisa for 7 years. We met in college, and we dated all through our college years. Lisa and Jess also became good friends too. After college, Lisa and I just grew apart and had different goals in life. I became boring after college as I was working on my PhD while doing a full-time job. Lisa broke up with me as she wanted to party on weekends while I was home studying. I was heartbroken, but I don't think that I ever blamed her or had resentment towards her, as I understood my decisions were selfish and should not hold her back from having the best life. Jess always stood by me and comforted me during that time. Jess and Lisa were good friends, and Jess always kept on telling me that Lisa loves me and will be back one day when I am ready. I foolishly held on to the hope and stayed friends with Lisa. That was until I met my fiancé Yang. After I finished my PhD, I got a job in a big tech company. Yang joined our team a year after me. We started going out for drinks and dinner, and we started dating seriously pretty soon thereafter. We are happy together, and financially we are in a great place. Needless to say, I stopped talking to Lisa after I started dating Yang. I proposed to Yang a year after we started dating, and we got engaged last year. Jess has been acting weirdly since we got engaged. One of the first things she said to Yang after we got engaged was how I had planned the same thing for Lisa, proposing on a local hiking trail. It was a bit off-putting that she was bringing up Lisa, whom I broke up with almost 5 years ago, on such a happy occasion. However, Yang asked me not to spoil my mood, as she felt that Jess was just commenting on how I had that plan in mind for years. Since then, every time we meet, Jess, without fail, brings up Lisa and how things that I'm doing are all things that I had planned with Lisa. This happened when we bought a house, planned for vacations, etc. Jess always starts with some nostalgic story and then brings up how Lisa and I were so happy together. She's still good friends with Lisa and keeps bringing me updates about Lisa and just how great Lisa is doing at work when no one is asking for it. It felt like she was painting a rosy picture of Lisa to Yang and telling Yang that she would always become second to Lisa. Yang told me that Jess's comments bothered her, and I also felt the same. I've brought this up with Jess many times and asked her not to do it. However, she says she'll try, but since I dated Lisa for 7 years, she would be a part of many stories from the past. Also, she asked me why talking about Lisa bothers me and asked if I still have feelings for her. I have reduced hanging out with Jess. However, she's close with my mum and is always invited to all of our family parties and holidays. I talked to my mum and sister about this, and they feel as though I'm overreacting. They feel that Jess is just telling stories, and since the stories are mostly from college days and later, Lisa will be a character in the story. They also feel that I shouldn't be bothered by Jess mentioning Lisa since we broke up a long time ago. I feel that it's disrespectful to Yang, as she doesn't need to hear about all the fun that Lisa and I had when we were together and how we were planning to get married. Do you guys think that I'm the asshole to stop here, or Jess is truly acting out of line? In the comments, you probably need to separate your time with your fiancé away from your friend. On a side note, your friend comes across poorly on one other aspect. When you were too busy to date so you could study, is she encouraging you to stay available while your ex goes about dating around? Do you think that she ever encouraged your ex to not? Or do you think that she was telling your ex that she could have all the fun she wanted because you would still be around? Just some food for thought. And OP says, she thought we were 24 when we were broken up, and she always justified that Lisa was young and it's natural to date around before you settle down. She also encouraged me to do the same. However, after my breakup, I decided that I would not be in a relationship based on what happened to the previous one, and never dated anyone until after I graduated. Someone else says, not wrong. In fact, it's thoughtful of your fiancé's feelings. Jess always kept on telling me that Lisa loves me and will be back one day when I'm ready. Yikes! And easy, Jess, you keep bringing up my ex, and you keep making comments which are dismissive of my relationship with Yang. I am telling you point blank that this is harming our friendship, and it saddens me that you dismiss my feelings as being unimportant on this topic. If you can't respect me and my relationship with Yang, please understand why it will likely end our friendship. OP says, we have had this exact conversation. Jess then proceeded to ask Yang is she offended by her telling stories about me. Yang was polite and said she's okay, and then she told me that I'm being too sensitive. Someone else asks, OP, do you know if Lisa is married? Maybe Jess is trying to sabotage your engagement so that you can be with Lisa. And OP says, I know Lisa is single. She's not been in any serious long-term relationship after me. In fact, Jess always makes it a point to bring up that regularly and to update me, even after I tell her that I have no interest. My mum loves gossip, and they also discuss about Lisa regularly. Jess is just being a mean girl, / have you talked about Lisa at all? And OP says, at this point, I suspect Jess is just being mean to Yang. I would have cut her off a long time ago if she was not so close to me or my family for so many years. Lisa is out of the picture, to be honest. I have completely gone no contact with her for the last 2 years. Then I don't know what else there is to say at this point, OP. I think just cut it off with Jess too. Let her be close with your family and let her attend things, but make it very much clear that she is to have no more contact with you guys, and she knows why. I know that's easier said than done, but just putting your foot down and saying that is more than acceptable. I think everyone here would agree. If she's just being mean to Yang, then why keep her around? Genuinely, what is the point? And now, onto the update. So I wrote a post a month ago regarding my friend Jess mentioning my ex constantly in front of my fiancé. Thanks to everyone who commented, and how inappropriate it was. However, the last month has been nothing but crazy, and I'm still trying to make sense of what happened so far. After my post, I decided to talk to Jess and I gave her an ultimatum not to speak about my ex Lisa again. I know Jess and Lisa are still friends, but I was uncomfortable of her comparing my fiancé Yang with Lisa all the time. I broke up with Lisa 5 years ago, and she is nothing but a faint memory in the past. Jess kept on defending herself and telling me that I was with Lisa for most of my adult life, and it's hard to tell any stories from the past without including her. She also blamed me for being emotionally childish and just forgetting about Lisa when she was with me for 7 years. Finally, Jess agreed that she will not bring up Lisa in front of Yang, and I should also not treat Lisa as though she does not exist, since she is still Jess's friend. I informed Yang about our conversation, and although she was appreciative about it, she said that I did not need to do it, and she knows how much I love her, and every time Jess brings up my Lisa, she feels sorry for Lisa that she let a guy like me go. Yang went to visit China 2 weeks ago for a month as we plan to get married in her hometown. She's taking care of her shopping as well as preparations for the wedding. Jess invited me to her house that Friday for dinner as I was home alone. I'm also good friends with her husband, and we were just all chatting and drinking in the living room. At around 7:30 p.m., the doorbell rang, and Jess excitedly went to open the door. To my surprise, it was effing Lisa at the door. She was all dressed up as if she were ready for a date to come in. I had not seen her in person for almost 3 years, and I was shocked to see her. She sat down and started making small talk with me. I was extremely uncomfortable and went into the kitchen to talk to Jess. I was angry at her and asked her what was going on. She kept telling me that it's been 5 years since the breakup and just to get over it and be nice to Lisa. She said that Lisa was excited to meet me and she thought that we were all adults and could have one fun evening together. We had a fight, and I told her that she should not have invited Lisa after our conversation the other day, and I do not want to be friends with her anymore. I went into the living room and I politely excused myself and told everyone that I had a work emergency and I had to leave early. Lisa looked sad, but I genuinely felt uncomfortable to be made to hang out with my ex without my consent. I came home and I called Yang. I have never seen her more furious, and she told me she's not comfortable with Jess anymore as she has some agenda that we do not know about. It's different to talk about Lisa, but to invite her over without consulting me is not okay. I also felt the same, and I called Jess the next day and told her that she crossed a line and I was terribly upset with her. I stopped taking her calls and I ghosted her. I also told my mum and sister about the whole incident. Last Sunday, my mum called me for lunch, and when I got there, I saw Jess was already there. I told my mum that I don't want to talk to Jess and I can't stay. However, she asked me to sit as they all wanted to talk to me. I have a glutton for punishment, and I decided to hear them out. My mum started with how Jess has been there for me all these years and only has my best interests at heart. She kept on telling me that they are the three people, my mum, sister, and Jess, that love me the most. Jess started saying how she felt that I was making a big mistake in not having to hear what Lisa had to say. She told me that Lisa was my first love, and Lisa is now ready to settle down, and we can pick up where we left off. She reminded me how broken I was when Lisa left me, and how life is giving me a second chance. My sister also chimed in and said how they all liked Lisa more than Yang, and how we both looked so great together. Finally, my mum started saying how our culture was so different than Yang's, and it's hard for them to relate to her. I asked them in what way, and my mum said that they didn't understand what Yang says sometimes, and that we have nothing in common with her. Then my mum asked me to think about how Lisa and I would have such wonderful-looking kids, while if I marry Yang, our kids will look so different. I started getting their drift, and I probed more. My mum told me how our kids would look Asian with small eyes, and not like any others in the family. I asked my mum if she cared about my kids' looks more, and not about how smart they'll be, since Yang has a PhD. She blew it off, and I realized that she just didn't want me to marry Yang because she was Chinese and not white. My mum told me to forgive Jess, and my mum asked Jess to talk to Lisa on my behalf, and asked her if she would be interested in getting back together with me. My mum was adamant that since I loved Lisa so much, I should be happy and pick things up where I left off, as that is the best for everyone. I have never been so angry, and may have said a lot of unkind things to all of them before I left. I'm so depressed right now. I not only lost my best friend, but also am not sure how I can move on from what my mum said. My mum and sister raised me, and that's the reason that I am where I am today. However, I cannot get over how racist they are being, and how they were just pretending to like Yang for all of these years, while actively working on breaking us up. I have been so shocked that I have not told any of this to Yang so far. I might have to wait for her to come back next week and talk to her in person. Again, thanks everyone for all of your messages on the last post, as they helped me a lot to think through the situation. My life is more effed up than I could imagine, and I cannot imagine how dejected Yang will feel after hearing all of this. In the comments, Caspian4136 says, "Jesus Christ, dude, this is a lot. I'm so sorry that your mum and sister turned out to be racists. That has to have gutted you. No words except that they'd have to come crawling back on hands and knees, begging and groveling before I'd accept an apology. Sadly, you'll never forget what they said and think, so the relationship will never be the same. As for Jess, she's done. If you feel that you want some sort of closure, just tell her that she's crossed so many lines that she's on another planet by now, and what she did is unforgivable. Block her on everything, mourn the friendship, but try to not look back. Look forward to the life that you've created with Yang. Talk with your fiancé and tell her everything. She'll help you through this." This was not a surprising update. Jess isn't subtle in the first post. She did OP a favor by making it clear which friendship that she valued more. The comments telling OP that Jess was in love with him have to have been written by bots or illiterate people, because how the hell do you read that first post and get that when Jess makes it painfully obvious that she's trying to get him back together with Lisa? Honestly, I could have seen it being a longer plan. Like she knew that OP wouldn't go back to Lisa, so Jess just kept bringing it up to sabotage their relationship and drive a wedge between Yang and OP. Then she swoops in and saves the day. Of course, that isn't what happened, but that is usually where my mind goes first in these scenarios, instead of racist family shadow plans. Well, I will say I'm angry, and I also am disappointed. Who would have thought that it was the racist family plans all along? What a twist! Although if I were to be in OP's shoes right now, I would be absolutely destroyed to have to lose a best friend and my mum and sister knowing that they thought this and that they were planning this the whole time. That is not something that's easy to deal with and not something that's easy to get past. And I wish OP all the best in the future going through this because, Jesus, that is insanely tough. Our next post is by user Legal Question Dallas, titled, I want to get a new job, but boss owns all my possessions and is going to take everything away if I leave. I don't think this is right, but I don't know who to call. Dallas, Texas. This is kind of a long story, but I'm 19 and want to leave my job and go find a new one. I can do part-time so I can finish school. My boss is okay with me leaving, but the problem is that he won't be able to support me anymore if I do, which means I will lose everything that I own, and now I don't really know where to turn. I started here when I was 16. A guy I knew got a big suite in the hotel, which is one of the nicest ones in Dallas. We had a party here. We were drinking and it got out of control, and people threw up in the room and caused a lot of damage around the hotel and stole a bunch of things. The next morning, I woke up to the manager and security yelling at me. My friends were all gone, but they left me there sleeping. The manager took me to his office, and I was crying, and I begged him not to call the police. So he said that I could start coming in after school and helping them clean rooms and do dishes in the kitchen to work off the money from all the damage, and that he wouldn't call the police. After a few weeks, I told him that I couldn't do it anymore because my parents wouldn't drive me since I wasn't bringing home any money to save, and they said that he was taking advantage of me. But I just didn't want to tell them that I was working to pay off the debt, and I didn't listen because I know they didn't know the full story. So he bought me a used bike to use, and said that he wanted me there every day until the damage was all paid, plus the bike. Over the next couple of months, he got more and more demanding, and every time I asked how much more work I had to do, he always just told me that he'll tell me when I'm finished, and if I don't want to, then he can just call the police. So I just kept working and doing what he said. He changed my hours to 4 to 12 every night, and it was affecting my school. He's a nice guy, and I didn't want my grades to suffer, and I always had to bring my report cards to him, but he said to not drop out. But when I turned 18, I stopped going to school and just slept in the day. And when he found out, he said that I had to be here pretty much all day if I'm not going to be in school, which I hate because I don't really have any time for friends or my girlfriend. Then things got rocky with the rents, and I said that I wanted to leave, and my boss is house sitting for a family that lives in India. It's been great, except a couple of months per year, I have to move out because they're coming home. They don't know that I live here for the rest of the time. It's not all bad because I've lived comfortably. He lets me take home food from the hotel that is left over from the very upscale restaurant, and the house I live in is really nice. And if there are books or other things in the gift shop that no one buys, sometimes he lets me take those too. Still, I've told him several times that I want to be paid, but he always says that I owe him and will not tell me how much the damage was or how much I have worked off. I know the statute of limitations is 3 years, and after that, he can't press charges against me. So yesterday was 3 years exactly, and I told him I know that he can't have me arrested anymore and that I want to quit. He said that's okay, but he bought my bike, all the good-looking clothes that I had, and all the essentials that I needed since I was 16. Now he's saying that if I don't work for him anymore, that I can't live in the house, and I have to give back all the things that he bought for me to use during my job. He's got me a lot of things, but I have seriously no money, so there's no way that I can leave the job. When I need something, I just ask him, and if I'm doing well at work, then he'll buy it for me. So I don't even know where to start to rebuild my life after this place. Are there resources for cases like this? Is there a way to make him let me keep everything until I'm on my own feet? Thank you, Reddit. In the comments, xbrand2 says, slavery is illegal. That's what's been going on here. Lord, I don't even know where to begin. Talk to a lawyer that deals with employment law in your area. OP says, is that really going to count as slavery? And is that textually a crime? I broke the law and he was giving me a chance to avoid prison. He also said since we used fake IDs and his brother's credit card, that he could call the FBI on us all for fraud. I was really doing all of this to protect my friends and me and my girlfriend from going to jail. He was talking a bunch of crap. You've been taken advantage of. Go speak to a local lawyer. OP replies, I wanted to let everyone know that I looked up the best employment lawyers in Dallas and sent some emails last night. I figured that if this is as big as a deal as everyone here is saying, then they will for sure want my case. Anyway, I got a call back today to set up a meeting first thing tomorrow morning. Wish me luck. I'm not surprised that someone responded so quickly and you got an appointment first thing tomorrow. Anyone who practices employment law would dream of this case. Best of luck, and please keep me updated if you can. And now, on to the update. Thank you all so much for your advice this weekend. I'm literally in the middle of the craziest day of my life today. Looking back, I feel like my situation was way over the top, but it took hearing all of you say it and calling it slavery, and then going and talking to these lawyers for it to really hit home what he has put me through over these past 3 years. I'll write more later, but I just wanted to give a quick update because I'm so excited that I can hardly focus. Yesterday, I googled the top employment law firms in Dallas and sent some emails. I then got a call from a lawyer saying that he wanted to meet with me the first thing in the morning. My mind was racing all night, and I didn't get to sleep until after 3 a.m., and I needed to leave by 7. I printed out about 50 pages of emails that I have with him over the past 3 years. I never delete anything, and also made notes from some of his voicemails. After about 5 minutes talking to me this morning, he asked if I would be okay for some of the other lawyers that he works with to join us, and I spent about 2 hours answering their questions and talking them through everything. The moment this all sank in for me of how big of a deal this was when I saw one of the lawyers tear up a couple of times while I was talking. Honestly, it never felt like such a big deal to me before, but now I'm seeing it from a whole new light. In the end, they said they'll take 100% of my case, and I won't have to pay them anything up front, and they just need a few days to do some research before we meet again and talk about the details, which is going to happen on Friday. Like a bunch of you said, they told me that it's a lot more than just a pay issue, and that there are a lot of parts that they need to explore about lost wages, and also criminal charges that he will 100% face, but that they need to talk about the strategy first. They also said since I'm over 18 now, that my parents don't need to know anything about it or be involved in any way. When we were finishing, the main lawyer that I was talking to asked what I was doing for the rest of the day. I told him that I thought I was just going to play it cool until we actually sue him, and I would go to work after this. I called in sick this morning and said that I would be in after lunch. He then said, "Will you excuse us for just a minute?" And they went into another office to talk for a few minutes. When they came back out, they asked me if I wanted to stop working at this job and get out from under this guy. I said yes, so he said to go home and pack my things, and they are going to make arrangements for me this afternoon. He said that I'm never going to work there again and should not answer any calls or messages from them ever again. So I've been home now for a few hours packing, and then I got this email from their office. Blank, it was a pleasure meeting you this morning. Blank asked me to get in touch to share details of the accommodations that we would like to provide, as well as some logistical information in advance of your Friday meeting. We've made a 30-day reservation for you at blank, which is closer to our offices, and blank. I've attached a copy of your reservation confirmation. Please note that it has been paid in full. Blank from our office will be in touch with you around 4 o'clock this afternoon to check in on how things are going and to coordinate with you on getting your things out of the house and into the hotel. She will also provide you with some spending money for any immediate essentials and get you set up with an UberX account to make transportation to our offices a little easier next time. Although we hope to represent you in these matters, we are providing these accommodations at no cost and with no obligation on your part. This is intended to help bring a more immediate stability to your living situation so that you can focus on your next steps in your life. Thank you again for getting in touch with us. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Warm regards, blank. So I'm assuming if they're willing to do all of this for me and spend all of this money, that they think that they're going to make a lot of money from this, which probably means that I'm also going to come out well. So I'm beyond thrilled with how this is turning out so far, and 100% want to work with them. I still have a ton to pack, and just wasted an hour on the internet, but I'm going to get back to it now. Thank you all so much for pointing me in the right direction. And now on to the final updates, titled, More ups and downs, but I'm finishing my education, made some new friends, back with my parents, and actually starting to enjoy life again. I posted here a couple of years ago when I was stuck working for someone who threatened to have me arrested over some room damage that my friends caused. Sorry I can't find the post, but some of you may remember. A lot has changed since then, and the advice that I got from all of you has been such a big part of it that I've thought about this frequently and wanted to come back and write something to update you guys. The firm that I hired was the best thing that I could have ever hoped for. They got me out from under his thumb immediately and helped me get back on my own feet without having to be under my boss or my parents or anyone else. During the days after that, I basically lived in their offices for a few months when this started, since we were going through 1,000 emails and voice messages talking about the context behind them all and trying to make a long timeline of events and tell them everything that ever happened with him. It was so emotionally draining, but their team was very supportive and helped me through the hard times. When it was all laid in front of me, the guilt over what I did to my life really took hold. How could I be so stupid? It's so obvious what he was doing. Simple math said that none of this made sense, but I just didn't see it. I think part of it was because of my parents and not wanting to listen to them so much that I decided that they had to be wrong when they tried to get me to stop. My lawyers started talking to my boss and his lawyer and the hotel chain's executives and also to the police, and they said that there were also some issues that made it possibly a federal crime. None of that registered with me how serious it was. But once that happened, and I thought things were going to be okay, he came to the hotel that I was staying in. Yes, he actually followed me from my lawyer's office one day, and that's how he found out where I was staying, and came to the door yelling at me about how he gave me everything and did everything for me, and that this is going to ruin him and his family, and showing me pictures of his kids who he said would have to starve without him to put food on the table. Telling me that I blew all of this out of proportion and that my lawyers were going to bankrupt his family and put him in prison for life. They never said anything to me about that, and I didn't want his family to suffer so much, but he was also being really mean. He had never yelled at me like this before, and even though he never hurt me in the past, this time I was actually scared. I texted my lawyer to see what I should do, and they came immediately with the police, and they arrested him immediately, and they got me a restraining order. A few days later, my mum and lawyer came over while I was taking a nap and woke me up and told me that he took his own life. I have never felt as bad as I did at that moment. It's a feeling that I wouldn't wish on anyone. Just a sick feeling in my stomach, and my whole body felt numb. And I felt like it was a bad dream that I could wake up from, except I couldn't. I had a mental breakdown and spent 2 months in the hospital thinking about all the things he said to me about his family and about me overblowing this, and it made me question everything again. My lawyers said they would handle as much of this as they can without me and just come to me when they had something important that they needed my input for. My parents also came back into the picture and were very supportive and were helping more than I ever expected. I asked my mum to bring a printout of all the comments from my first post, and that helped me a lot. I read over them every day, just to remind myself that what he did was not okay, and that I was right to get help. The most apologetic person was someone from the hotel chain. They said that it was a private-owned and managed hotel, so my boss didn't even work for them, but they still wanted to make sure that I was okay. In the first comments, you guys were saying that I should be owed at least $30,000. Well, the hotel chain itself paid me more than just that for agreeing that they were not responsible for what he did. Lawyers said that it was a generous offer that they didn't even have to make, and that the person that I talked to genuinely felt sick over my situation and wanted to do the right thing. So they told me that I should take it, and that there was a lot more coming from the franchisee, which owns dozens of hotels, but not all from this chain. The franchisee was very defensive at first, but a big turning point was when they realized that one of the managers who was over the hotels in Dallas was actually a guy that I saw all the time, and who my boss had told the story of me working there, and we talked about it once, and he told me that he hoped that I worked it off soon and wished me good luck. But he knew that I was there for years, and he was also the one who approved our budgets, so he knew that they were not paying me. My lawyers were very smart to find this out, and when they did, the franchisee wanted to settle. It was a big settlement. My lawyers got a third. They said that it's one of the biggest any of them has ever seen for this kind of case, but they said that it was fully warranted. I have enough to live on for a very long time, and can also finish my education in hotel management, and will have enough left over to start a hotel after this if I still want to do that. It has been a blessing, but I also didn't realize how incredibly hard it is. I never told anyone about the settlement, but people found out. Everyone comes out of the woodwork and suddenly wants to be my friend again. So the hardest thing is by far trying to figure out who I want to be friends with and who I don't. Little awkward things like you go to dinner with a small group and people look at you like they expect you to pay for everyone just because you got a big payout. Guess who even had the balls to call me? The friends that I was with all those years ago who left me in that damn room, and my girlfriend who I tried to protect from her parents and didn't reveal their names so that her Bible thumper parents wouldn't find out that she was bi. It hurt a lot to hear from them after all these years. Very upsetting. Pretty much the only people that I really trust now are the people who stuck with me before. But I do have a financial manager now who makes sure that I'm being smart with my money and tells me how much I should use for different things that I want to do. So that's my story. And now I'm going to school part-time and also doing a lot of outdoor sports and also got into cooking. Little things like having time for hobbies and fun are a big change for me. And I still feel like it's some new life that I'm getting used to. I feel like I've lived 4 lives already in these different little phases. But so far, this one is my favorite. I still have nightmares sometimes about my old boss, and just remembering him yelling at me that day at my hotel, and then me hearing that he died. I remember all the times that he was nice to me, and gave me things, and did things for me, and gave me dating advice, and told me I was smart, pretty, etc. Sometimes I wonder, even as happy as I am now, if it was worthwhile to know that he's actually gone, and that his family is suffering and has nothing. My therapist says sometimes the right thing can be hard and hurts, and sometimes bad things happen to good people who don't deserve it, but that I did everything right, so that helps me feel a lot better, one day at a time. In the comments, Conleib says, I literally sighed with relief as soon as I read the words financial manager. I hope this person is able to live their best life from now on. Genuinely, as an accountant, even if I came into a large sum of money, that's my first expense. It's just different when it's personal finances, almost harder to budget. As a fellow accountant, I'd do the exact same thing and get on the phone to my old job's go-to FA, a great financial advisor and excellent drinker. I still can't wrap my head around what the hell the owner was thinking. Did he get off on the power trip? Did he justify himself saying that OP was paying for the damage? Did he think that he was teaching OP or something? Because it doesn't seem like a slave-operated hotel, just this one teenager there being exploited, so it was personal. You'd be surprised how much of this goes on in the US. Granted, it's more commonly domestic labor in private homes. Families hiring a live-in nanny and housekeeper and keeping her passport, controlling who she can see and when she can go out. Pretty much just like the stuff you hear about in the Gulf, just a bit more under the table. But hotels, restaurants, sweatshops, places that pay cash, easier to hide non-payment, and hire a lot of people with uncertain immigration status and/or language barriers, it happens in all of them. Used to be rife in Chinatowns, though I'm not sure if it's still like it was a couple of decades ago, although it probably is. A friend of mine who's a lawyer used to work on these cases in the NYC area all the time. Our neighbors growing up had a nanny whose friend, also a nanny, was being treated like this. My mum and her friend and her nanny drove over there one day while her family was out, helped her pack all of her stuff and get the hell out. And then she was our nanny for the next few years. Unlike her previous employers, my parents got her a driver's license and sponsored her for citizenship. She eventually met someone from her home country, and they got married and started a business. I'm pretty sure they're still the first people anyone in my extended family calls when they need a contractor. Am I the asshole here for threatening to divorce my husband if he doesn't tell his parents that we are married? You read that right. My 22 female, husband, 22 male, and I have been married for 3 years now. To sum it up, we were both young, dumb, and going to enlist in the military to get out of our small town, so we eloped to the courthouse. We were both going to keep it a secret at first to reap the benefits from the military, see how our relationship went, and go from there. Ended up not enlisting in the military, so I told my parents that we eloped a few months after. He never told his parents, and I've been asking him to tell them. They didn't have a good relationship when we got married, and that's why he didn't tell them. I gave him an ultimatum this past week that he has to tell them by the end of the week, or I'm divorcing him because he's crossing a boundary that I've discussed with him multiple times over the past year. I'm uncomfortable with them not knowing, and I honestly feel like he's not mature enough to be in a marriage if he can't man up to tell them. He said he's scared to hurt them, and I countered that he needs to get it over with, that he is also hurting me. His parents love me, by the way, and I've been tempted to tell them by myself, but he always stops me. Well, I gave him an ultimatum, and he immediately became defensive. He told me that if I didn't want to be married to him, that he would return the wedding set that he just upgraded for me. He told me that I was being an asshole for pressuring him when he wasn't ready. I told him that I wasn't saying that at all. I'm just tired of him not being an adult, which makes me question our relationship. I love him, but it's screaming red flags, and I know I'm young enough that it won't ruin my life if we divorce. My parents have a big issue with him keeping it a secret too, and have brought it up to him. The reason I haven't already went home is because I live on the other side of the country, away from both of our families, and we have pets. However, he knows if he does not tell them by this Sunday that I'll be making plans to move once my summer semester ends. So, am I the asshole here for threatening to divorce my husband because he won't tell his parents that we are married? Additional information from OP. OP says, I didn't tell him to man up in our conversation, it's just a phrase that I used in my post. Believe it or not, I do love him, and I was actually very gentle with our conversation when we had it. Word for word, I said, hey babe, you know I've had an issue with your parents not knowing that we are married. I love you very much, but at this point, I feel like you're ashamed of me, and I'm confused. I've given you multiple chances, and have decided that if you don't tell them by the end of the week, I'm going to make plans to move back home at the end of my summer semester. How was this conversation prompted? Well, I received my new wedding set, which he promised to send a pic to his parents to finally tell them, and never did. I've brought up my feelings multiple times over the past year about this specific situation because I do want our relationship to work and to resolve this. I'm tired of not being heard. I, however, know now that threatening to divorce makes it seem like I want to get out of the marriage versus work on it. In the comments, Actual Clue 3165 says, not the asshole. You're not pressuring him into marriage. I don't see why it's such a big deal for him to tell his parents when he's had 3 years to sit on it. OP replies, I don't know why it's such a big deal either, which is making me more concerned. His parents love our relationship and have told me many times privately how supportive they are of us, and they're not intimidating whatsoever. They love him so much. OP on if her husband is in military or school, and if divorce will impact their life and degree. OP says, he's neither. We decided not to enlist for him to go to college, and he graduated last year. That's why we live across the country. He works at a lab in California now. I'm currently still in college working on my bachelor's degree though, and it'll be fine. I was in foster care, so I have a full ride scholarship that also pays for any necessities I need. I'm doing fully online college at the moment to get prereqs finished. I have a job too, and have remained financially independent just because I was brought up that way. So I'm not too concerned about it. The main thing is our pets, but I don't want to separate if I don't have to. OP on if her husband's extended family knows that they're getting married. OP says, my whole side of the family knows. All of his friends know, and one of his cousins knows. I'm pretty sure his mum knows too, but we don't really keep in contact with her because of her lifestyle, which is addiction. He just hasn't told his dad or stepmom, the ones who raised him, but his relationship with his dad is weird. I was fine with it at first because I knew his dad was an alcoholic and they had a pretty bad relationship when we decided to get married, as in they didn't communicate. His dad was out drinking and he was home alone. That's how his whole upbringing was. I do want to add and feel that it's unfair that I didn't add to my post that my husband worked really hard through college and has not taken the same path as his two parents. He struggles with communicating his emotions, but outside of that, he's really great. He's supportive, helps around the house, believes in me, and I feel like an asshole for not adding that to my post, to be honest, because it allows room for people to see him as a bad guy. However, I started having an issue with them not knowing for the past year because his dad and him have a much better relationship now. We spend every holiday with him. He talks to him all the time, etc., and he's not an alcoholic anymore. Their relationship has been better for 2 years. I know that doesn't redeem his dad, by the way. My parents chalk it up to him being afraid to tell his dad because his dad possibly abused him. Though my husband has said that his dad was a great dad, he was just a drunk, never said he physically abused him, but I believe his dad was very neglectful, which is still abuse, because that's the only thing that could make sense, rather than him just being scared and immature. My parents do love my husband, and are just as confused as I am. I really think that he feels like it's an awkward time frame now to tell them. However, he's an adult and needs to own up to it, especially knowing that I've had an issue with it over a year. It's hard because I try to justify his actions based on his past, but I know if I do that, I'll let this slide, which I don't need to do any longer. Sorry if that doesn't make any sense and is a jumble. Arenia Q says, "This is beyond weird. What is going on that he thinks it's going to change if his side of the family finds out you're married? He probably doesn't know how to explain, but there's something very shady here. If you want out of the relationship, then just leave as soon as you can. He is married already." Nah, I'm joking, but his behavior doesn't make any sense at all. Neither yours, OP. It's been 3 years and you do not have a clear answer as to why he is so reluctant to tell them? I love that he says that you're pressuring him and it's been 3 years. It might have got to the point that he's left it for so long that he feels that it's super weird now to say, "Mum and Dad, we got married 3 years ago." But that's all on him, not the asshole. And pressuring him before he's ready after 3 years. If he's ready to be married, he's ready for the pressure of letting mummy and daddy know. Yeah, the math ain't mathin' on this one. I would love to know why he hasn't got the nuts to tell his stepmom and dad. What do they know that, OP doesn't? What is going to happen? You'd think, oh, he has a family and kids somewhere else that those two are hiding as a justification for why someone's so apprehensive to do that, or he has a girlfriend, but they're on the other side of the country, and he's not a pilot, so that doesn't make any sense either. Definitely not the asshole for this one, OP. I don't like how insular he's being. It's not particularly asshole behavior, but it's questionable at the very least. And now, onto the updates. I will begin with the update and then provide clarifications. I told his parents today, and they confirmed that they have known since 2021. They had a hunch and found the marriage license/deed online. They have been waiting for us to tell them and were just wanting a valid reason. No, my husband did not tell them. I told them. Our relationship is up in the air right now. Both of our parents know what is going on, and we are trying to figure out how to move forward, whether that be attending therapy together, one of us moving back to North Carolina, or both of us moving back home. We are actively communicating on our future and whether that future will be together or not. Here are some clarifications. No, we did not enlist. Yes, we were in love. We decided to enlist 6 months into our relationship and felt that there was no point in waiting to get hitched because we could benefit from it as well. It wasn't like the movie Purple Hearts. We were in a relationship before enlisting and thought that it would get us out of our small town quickly. His mother struggles with addiction, his father was an alcoholic, and his stepmom raised him. He and his stepmom have always been extremely close. His father did not beat him, he was just absent because if he wasn't working, he was drinking. Their relationship was bad in terms of not communicating with each other, and his dad emotionally neglecting him by not being there. They communicate a lot better now, and on a daily basis. We spend the holidays with them all the time, and they call often. They made up. To add on to this, both of my parents were addicts, which is why I went into foster care and was adopted by my now parents, who I refer to in my last post as knowing. I completely understand the struggles and complications of addiction. My main issue is his lack of communicating in general. I understand now that an ultimatum is not the best way to go about things when you want to make the relationship work. I let my emotions control me, and I gave him a harsh ultimatum. I'm not sure it'll work out though. This is the hardest thing that I've dealt with in my mere 22 years. Both of our parents are supportive if we choose to stay together or separate. They want us to make it work, but there are no hard feelings if it doesn't. They're offering as much support as possible. My main issue is I'm still the only one communicating, which is why I'm hesitant to continue the relationship even though I love him. I did come off as pressuring, and I realize that now. One reason I'm having a rough time trusting him is due to finding out that he was messaging OnlyFans models over the course of the past year, and his reasoning was, we were having problems, which I wasn't aware of. I didn't want to include that in the last post because I didn't want to seem like a complete idiot and make it fair on his image, since he isn't on Reddit to give his side of the story. In the comments, OceanBreeze123 says, "You did the right things. Did he ever tell anyone that you two were married? Has he kept it a secret from everyone for years? If so, that along with the OnlyFans seems like he wants to be single. That must be so hard. I'm so sorry, OP." And OP says, he's told everyone, including his co-workers, friends, and cousins, that we are married, which made it confusing, but thank you for your empathy. I'm sorry, sweetheart. He is definitely not ready to be married if he's messaging OnlyFans models. That could be why he didn't want to tell his parents that he's married to you. He's been hiding a lot of things, and that does not bode well for a happy future. I understand that you love him, but you need to love yourself more. Can you bear years of this non-communicative behavior, only to end up in a worse situation than you are now? There's too many red flags here. Running away with someone else to escape a bad upbringing is understandable because you need support, but if he's continuing the pattern with you, you'll be worse off in the long run. I believe in you. You don't need him to break away and make a better life for yourself. Build yourself a good support system and don't look back. Quote, "He is definitely not ready to be married if he's messaging OnlyFans models." Yeah, I don't understand how him cheating wasn't a deal breaker already. OP says, "It's called being dumb." Well, how did his phone break? Did he throw it in a fit of temper during your arguments? And OP says, "Yeah, he threw it onto the ground." Okay, you need to understand that this is a precursor to domestic violence. First, they throw things, then they escalate to slamming doors and hitting walls, and then they move on to hitting you. He says the two of you are having marriage problems, which is why he resorted to OnlyFans relationships. But in reality, he's just been looking for your replacement. I think you know that your marriage is already over. You've been a placeholder girlfriend while he looks for someone who he likes more, who wants him back. Please do yourself a kindness and walk away from this marriage. Quote, "He's messaging OnlyFans models and won't tell his parents about me, and I threatened divorce, but didn't really mean it. Also, we married 6 months into our relationship at age 19, and didn't actually end up enlisting." Just a beautiful string of immature decisions by two kids trying to play house. I wish them both the best. They may be able to figure it out, but most likely not. Don't get married when you're a kid. Glad to hear their issues are mostly just dumb kid stuff and nothing more serious. God, I hope she doesn't get pregnant. I really try not to be judgmental of kids who get married so young, but it's hard not to FaceTime every time I see these kinds of stories. Our next post is by user ThrowRA Help with Girlfriend, titled, "I, male 20, accidentally punched my girlfriend, female 24, during sex. How can I get her to forgive me?" So I accidentally punched my girlfriend in the side about 3 or 4 days ago, but she's still not talking to me. I want to fix this since it was an accident, but I don't know how to get her to talk to me. Me and my girlfriend have been together for about 8 months now, and I really, really like her. She's sweet, pretty, funny, a total nerd like me, and she likes Dark Souls. She's my dream girl. She's also a little bit older, which I'm into. She's kind of weird also, but in the fun, quirky way. She's an amazing partner and is very supportive of the stupid things that I do and like. I say this so no one gets the wrong idea about her. My girlfriend likes to experiment a lot and has a super open mind. She's always telling me about something mid to super weird or underground that I've never heard of that she wants to try. It can be anything. Food, positions, hobbies, clothes, or whatever. Around last week, she mentioned some bedroom things involving a more dominatrix vibe. I was cool with this part, but then she brought up the specifics of what she wanted to try. She wanted to try pegging, and I didn't. She'd been watching the videos and doing her research trying to convince me, but I just wasn't on board with it. Usually I try everything else with little to no resistance, but I'm just not with this one. She was pretty sad about it and sort of sulked for a while, but I wasn't changing my mind. Every time after the first no, I wasn't exactly firm since I love my girlfriend and I didn't want her to be sad. I made it obvious that I was uncomfortable with it and didn't want to try it, but whenever she brought it up, I just kind of awkwardly said, haha, I don't know, babe, and quickly changed the subject. Usually this worked and she would drop the subject. I thought she got the message. I don't know, I should have been more obvious in hindsight. It's my fault for not putting my foot down and sitting her down to tell her that I was serious. It was the first time, but I think I might have given her mixed signals when I just changed the subject and awkwardly disagreed. Well, anyways, a few days ago, she tried it. She dressed up pretty and I was excited. She started her whole dommy-mummy thing and I was getting really into it. Maybe this is why she thought that I would be okay with it. She was on top of me and put her finger near my ass, and honestly I didn't notice at first because we were kissing and she was being really hot. You know how it is. But then she put her finger in, and I automatically felt that and punched her without thinking. I punched her in the side, and she pulled it out and hurt like hell, and I pushed her off of me rough. She fell back onto the edge of the bed, I think, which was good, because I wasn't trying to hurt her in the first place. It was just reflex. She started crying and screamed at me, asking what the fuck, and I didn't know what to do. She was yelling at me while I was trying to apologize, but it wasn't working, and she got dressed and then left. I called and texted a lot, but she wouldn't answer me back. I'm scared to lose her. She's amazing, and I feel really bad for punching her. It's been a few days, like I said, and I don't know what to do. She's been staying with her friend. How can I fix this? I didn't mean to punch her, it was just reflex. So yeah, I miss her, I want her back, and I feel like an idiot. How can I fix this? In the comments, RoboSpam says, actually, she violated your boundaries, but she's mad at you? That's a red flag right there. And OP says, I think she's more mad about the punch than anything because I'd be mad about that too. I definitely hit her hard. That being said, I appreciate the comment. I did tell her no and she didn't listen. I don't know what to do from here, but I don't think that I messed up or anything as much as I did earlier. And edit, within 30 seconds, I decided that we're obviously not staying together, Lamau. Not a good look. Dump Truck Dookie says, get her to forgive you? You should not need forgiveness from someone that violated you. The fact that it's been 3 to 4 days and she hasn't come to her senses and realized that what she did was totally messed up shows you what kind of person she is. If I were her, I would be apologizing to you relentlessly. And OP says, thanks man. Reading these makes me feel kinda less like an idiot because I punched her, but more like an idiot because I felt like an idiot for punching her. I didn't mean to, but she kinda did deserve it now that I read the comments and stuff. She and I are on the same lease, so that has to get figured out, but I don't think that I should stay. I want to have a heart-to-heart with her, but she won't even answer her phone. I might, to be honest, be blocked at this point. Being a broke college student sucks. It seems like you might be very confused about consent, why consent is important, and why violating consent is morally wrong. You need to start there so you can understand that you were sexually assaulted, and then maybe start to unpack whether or not you want to be in a relationship with someone who has no problem sexually assaulting you. Just because you're a man doesn't mean that women are allowed to do that to you sexually without your consent. She's not amazing and she doesn't respect you. Have some self-respect, my dude. OP replies, I grew up around the men don't get assaulted crowd and toxic masculinity, so I agree. I don't think I really understood what she did, but now I do. It's hard to come to terms with, but what can I do about it now? We're on the same lease, so that needs to get sorted out, but yeah, she might not be the dream girl that I thought she was. Embarrassing as hell though. I know my friends and family are going to tear me a new one for breaking up with her over this, but it's whatever. Maybe they should get a finger up their ass and tell me if they'd stay. Homie, she sexually assaulted you. Your punching her was an automatic self-defense mechanism to safeguard your bodily integrity. Why are you apologizing? You should tell her straight that she crossed a boundary, and not just any boundary, a criminal boundary. No means no. It doesn't matter if you said no half-heartedly or in a bashful manner, no still means no. Get rid of that creep of a girlfriend and don't apologize for defending yourself and your boundaries. To build on that, anything other than an enthusiastic yes also should be considered a no as well. Exactly. My fiancé has been the one expressing interest in getting pegged, and I'm totally down, but it's also a lengthy process that requires a lot of lube. The second he's expressing any sort of discomfort or pain, we're slowing down and stopping depending on what he asks me to do. I couldn't imagine just putting a finger in with no lube for my willing partner, let alone someone like OP who has expressed that he does not consent to something like that. That is straight up assault. And back up to the post, we have an edit. Yeah, we're not staying together. She's still not answering me and we're on the same lease, but I don't want to stay with her after this. Thanks for helping me out, guys. I might update the breakup if anyone wants to hear that or cares. Thanks for the funny Dark Souls comments. Someone said she should have parried my punch, and I laughed so hard that I spit water on my monitor. Don't let pretty, nerdy girls stick fingers in your ass if you said no. It's okay to punch them if they do it anyways. So yeah, thanks again, guys. Might update with the breakup if anyone cares or wants that. And now, on to the updates. Hey everyone, thanks for the help on my last post. Humor is my way to cope, and some of you didn't like that, but what can I do about it? For starters, I moved in with my mum and just decided to pay the rest of the lease with her help. I know it's kinda stupid, but I honestly don't want to deal with my ex anymore. She's not as great as I thought she was, which sucks, but it's whatever. Dark Souls isn't worth it. My ex didn't want to answer her phone for a while, but she called me out of the blue not too long after I made the post and told me that she's ready to forgive me. By this point, I was still coping and not feeling the best, so I laughed and asked her if she was forgiving me for reacting to being assaulted. She did not like or agree with that. She blew up at me over the phone, yelling about how she was assaulted and that I'm lucky that she didn't press charges. I basically just told her that we're done. She immediately backpedaled and said that she's sorry, I did nothing wrong, I'm so amazing, she'll never do it again. You know how it goes. I hung up the phone and played a sickening amount of Valorant, and yes, I'm ashamed of that. She came back home that night to beg me to get back together, but I obviously said no. I ended up being the one to move out after she started screaming and throwing my stuff at me. I didn't want to deal with her anymore, so I just said alright, and I took my PC though. So yeah, nothing that cool. She flipped out, I'm with my mum, got my PC. I look back and notice a lot of red flags, but my favorite color is red, so, you know, I'll have to pick a new favorite color. I'll be focusing on school for a while. Thanks to everyone who said something nice. I'll have to look into therapy one day once the damage really sets in. For now, I think that I'm just done with dating, and if anyone wants to chat, shoot me a message. I'd probably like a temporary internet friend. In the comments, LON66 says, sounds like a pretty mean girl every time she doesn't get what she wants. Good thing that you're done with her. And OP says, tell me about it. She had the habit of whining and, don't you love me, whenever I wouldn't immediately comply. It was rare that I didn't just go along with it, but when I didn't, it was hell until I said okay. Her skill in guilt tripping is pretty insane, and to be honest, I've never been the dominant type. It's my own character flaw and she played me pretty good, lol. You're only 20 and have a lot of life in front of you. Focusing on school is the best thing to do right now. There's a lot of growing up and maturing to do. 20 is too young to start living with someone. Date, have fun, study, and live a little. You'll look back at this as a learning experience. This is why consent and bodily autonomy needs to be taught to all genders in school or by parents. OP did not immediately recognize that he had been violated. We think of sexual assault as a scary stranger in a bush, when really most of the time, it's someone you know and love pushing your boundaries in ways that you would never anticipate. When I was assaulted by my ex-partner, not my ex at the time, I did not immediately realize what he had done to me. If I had been taught and understood my own boundaries and what real consent looks like, it would not have taken me months to realize that I had been violated. I'm glad that OP bailed. The way he describes his ex reminds me of my ex, and if he had stayed, she would have continued pushing his boundaries until she succeeded. We don't teach the need for enthusiastic consent enough. I remember flipping through my sister-in-law's Cosmo years ago and stumbling across an article about spicing up the bedroom, and one piece of advice was something like, stick your finger up his butt. He doesn't know he wants it, but he does, and just throwing the magazine away in disgust. This is why consent is important. Just because you're kinky and all doesn't make you have the right to violate someone else's boundaries. People need to learn about coercion in relationships. Hell, proper kink is all about consent. Am I the asshole for telling my husband that his fragile masculinity is costing us money? Back in late 2021, my husband Craig, male 46, and I, female 44, welcomed our fourth child into the world. As a result, we needed to upgrade most of our cars into something larger. We decided to trade in my super reliable Toyota RAV4 for something bigger, since I was the one who drove the kids around most often. I was open and ready to embrace minivan life and just planning to start buying something reliable and safe like a Honda or Kia. But Craig has his heart set on an SUV. In his mind, minivans were too feminine. So against my better judgment, we ended up purchasing a used 2018 Mercedes GLS 450, mainly due to his insistence. He argued that this car would offer similar space to the Kia and Honda minivans I wanted, but with added luxury. Since it was priced like a loaded Honda van, we went ahead with it. After 2 years, I can safely say that we made the wrong choice. While the car does have good passenger space, it doesn't seem to have as much cargo room as those other minivans. The reliability has been junk. The car has had 8 recalls during our ownership. Even when not recalled, it spends too much time at the dealership because something always seems to be broken. Some repairs have been covered under warranty, but we've still shelled out over $9,000, maintenance not included. The car hasn't even racked up that many miles. Below are just some of the annoyances. The shifting can be rough. Sometimes I press on the gas and the car barely moves, and when it does, it's jerky. For the past few weeks, the check engine light has been turning on randomly. Numerous electronic issues. Since the car's problems have stepped up in the past few weeks, I'm beyond fed up. I don't feel safe driving it around with my kids, and I've even started getting nightmares about it stranding us in the middle of nowhere. Craig always downplays this and claims that it's normal for the car to have some issues. Making things worse somehow, Craig's sedan has started developing issues lately. It has begun to refuse to start some mornings and will sometimes shut itself off when it comes to a stop sign or a red light. On Saturday, I was supposed to drive our eldest to a soccer game and then take my younger kids to the doctor's office. When I turned on the Mercedes, it sounded very rough. The engine light was on and the temperature reading was extremely wrong. I don't bother risking it and end up Ubering with the kids. I told Craig about it that night. He listened at first, but when I suggested selling it, he cut me off and said that he wasn't getting a van just because I wanted that. It was so combative and defensive the way he said it, and because I was so tired from the day, I lashed out. We argued, it got heated, and I ended up saying, "Your fragile masculinity is costing our family so much money." In retrospect, maybe my tone was harsh, but he was being needlessly difficult. We haven't really spoken much since then. I will also be Ubering to work this week since I won't be touching that car. Am I the asshole? In the comments, I don't get it. You're the primary user of the proposed car and he has his own. Even if you give in and call the car womanly, what's his insistence that his wife, presumably a woman, doesn't drive it? OP replies, "When we go on road trips, he usually drives. Also, he'll sometimes use it to take the kids to school and their other activities, and he doesn't want anyone confusing him with a soccer mum. It sounds so childish when I write it out and read it back to myself. So, he's worried that someone will look at him and think he has a girly car? Damn, he's a tool. I don't know. A dad in a minivan with his wife and kids is clearly a virgin. My first date with my now husband, I asked him what vehicle he drove. He looked embarrassed and pointed out the window to a van. I excitedly asked him if it was a Pontiac Montana, as I had fond memories of my old Montana. It was. He took me to see it, and on the dash was a stack of coupons. I knew in that moment that this man was the one that I was going to marry. The van and coupons were a major turn-on. I had an ex who made fun of me for using coupons, until he saw how much I saved on one shopping trip, and then he was all, "Damn, now I know why you're rich." Well, richer than him. Couponing is a dark art if you ask me. My bride of 20 years is a master at it, and has gotten us 7-day all-inclusive holidays at 5-star resorts in Mexico, including airfare, for $1,300 total. It is all witchcraft to me. Fellas, is it gay to have a reliable vehicle? You have my sympathy. Good luck. I'd say it's gay to have a wife driving a masculine vehicle. Just to go with his logic, he should want his wife to have a pink Barbie van so people see that he's got a real woman. He can put a sticker on every side to tell people, "It's my wife's, mine's a monster truck." She should just Uno reverse this and insist that she shouldn't be driving this car because she doesn't want to look like a lesbian. I've got 4 daughters, 17 months to 7 years old. We got a Toyota Sienna 2018, pre-owned certified. I drive that way more than my wife does. Your husband needs to get over himself. Yeah, very weird to me that you would go Mercedes for a vehicle that you need to be reliable, when obviously a Toyota or a Mazda would be way more reliable in this circumstance, or like a Kia, like you said. How it can be broken down for so long and have 9,000 in repairs, and him still have to defend his image is weird. I feel like you gave him so much grace and so much time to kind of figure this one out, OP. I don't blame you for snapping and calling out his fragile masculinity for this one. I feel like we're not memeing here. I feel like that is what it is. He doesn't want to come off as looking like a woman. Who cares? You have kids. Put them first, my dude. And now, onto the update from the husband's perspective. Before I begin this post, I'll add the disclaimer that this post is written from the perspective of the husband from the first post. My wife showed me the post she made this morning so that I could see how people were reacting to her perspective. I was honestly quite surprised by the comments, so I asked her if I could make a follow-up post to clarify my position. Firstly, I want to emphasize that I did not buy a lemon, as some people seem to think. We had the car inspected by a mechanic before purchasing it, and a Carfax report we obtained was clean. I understood that my wife, let's call her Ava, would be the primary driver. But I wanted a car with some ground clearance and all-wheel drive, since we sometimes drive along dirt roads when we go on vacation, and renting a car for these instances doesn't seem practical. In my mind, this requirement ruled out a Honda or Kia minivans. Additionally, I feel that a minivan is unnecessary for us, as we only have 4 children. I'll admit that I have a personal bias against minivans because they're exclusively mum cars. The Mercedes, on the other hand, has been expensive to repair and does experience frequent problems. But when it is fully operational, it is an excellent family cruiser. I understand that it's unreliable, but I think the idea of stranding my family in the middle of nowhere is a stretch. I was at work on Saturday, so I was unable to take the kids to their activities and appointments. When Ava sent me a picture of the gauge cluster of the Mercedes, I did offer to come back home and drop my car off for her to use, but she declined for 2 reasons. Firstly, she didn't think that it would have enough space, as it's a 2017 Chevy Impala, so it has a lot of space. And secondly, she was wary due to a minor stalling issue. At that point, we agreed that using an Uber was the best solution. On Saturday night, I arrived home exhausted from work at the hospital. All I wanted to do was eat dinner and catch up on the Spurs match. The argument happened around this point. I did try to be supportive, however, I still hold reservations about owning a minivan, and I felt that her comment about masculinity was both unhelpful and unnecessary. Call it poetic justice if you will, but this morning I was getting ready to take the kids to school and daycare. My Impala wouldn't start at all. Now we have 2 broken cars, and the entire family is relying on Uber. It can't be the battery or alternator since both were replaced within the last year, so I haven't got a clue what it is. I've accepted my wife's point of view, and we'll be looking at new car options later this week. She's very pleased about this and has mentioned that she considers this acceptance as an alternative to an apology from me. However, now she wants us to replace both cars. As for the lip balm and the purple shirt, my opinion is that most balms look too much like lipstick. And I don't find them hygienic since you essentially rub your old germs back on every time you use them. The shirt in question was more pink than purple, and more than that, it was far too tight for my liking. I hope this clarifies things and provides a better understanding of our own situation. And edit, for those wondering, my wife isn't paying for the repairs on her own. We take the repair bills out of our joint account. In the comments, Afraid Knowledge 220 says, "We only have 4 kids. That's not enough for a minivan." What a goofball thing to say. As an owner of 4 children and no minivan, it's enough for a minivan. Trust me. As a prior owner of an Astrovan before I became a parent, hell yeah! I managed to move apartments twice in that thing by removing the seats. Took the middle row out so there was just the front and back when taking the dogs to the vet. Could fit 2 cartfuls of grocery and 5 people comfortably. When the van died and it was time to get rid of it, we pulled one of the rows of seats out and kept them as a bench for the porch. It has armrests for both seats on the ends, and the middle seat folds down into a little table between the 2. Kinda trashy looking, but damn it's comfortable. And I recycled. Only have 4 children? Does your wife have to be Octomum to qualify for a minivan? Also, your bias isn't against minivans because they're exclusively mum cars. Your bias is that you think minivans are exclusively mum cars. Your wife was right to call you out on fragile masculinity, and I hope that you can examine why you attach gender to something as gender neutral as a vehicle, especially a safe vehicle for your children. Right? I'm the 5th and last child of my family, and it was bonkers effing yonkers for my parents for far long before I was even born. My dad drove a green minivan around for years. We had to force him to get rid of that thing. It was so old by the time he retired it, and my dad is so sensitive about his masculinity, but he saw a need for his wife and family, and he fulfilled it, because he values his family over his own insecurity. And now, on to the final update from OP. Craig and I were able to put the issues regarding the Mercedes behind us, and for the past week, we've been working towards finding a replacement. He was still leaning towards an SUV, and while I considered his opinion, it was ultimately my decision to make. After shopping around for a few days, we purchased this lovely black minivan on Friday. In the short time we've owned it, I can confidently say that it surpasses our Mercedes in essentially every way. The comfort is superior, the technology is better, but most importantly, it accommodates the whole family and all of our belongings with space to spare. Beyond that, I feel safe transporting my children or just running errands. Craig has also admitted that the minivan was a better choice. He has read many of the responses from previous posts and acknowledged that wanting an SUV, despite the current size of our family, was a bit impractical. He's even opened up to potentially using lip balm. However, the purple shirt I liked is still a no since he thinks that it's too snug-fitting and more pink than purple. He has been in a good mood since Arsenal lost or something, which I guess partially explains his newfound agreeableness. Currently, we only have the one working van. We'll be taking the Mercedes into the garage at some point in the future, and then hopefully selling it shortly after. Additionally, Craig's personal car will also need some repairs. In the comments, Mechamogzilla says, "Imagine only being open to change because one group of people kicked a ball better than another instead of, to be a better person. Sometimes the balls get in the way. I wonder if it's seen as a mum car because mums are usually the ones driving the kids everywhere? That's totally it. It also can't go at red lights and make the other dudes go, cool car, bro." It's always odd to me how often guys do things to impress other guys and not the women they say they want to attract. This guy really didn't think beyond caste stereotypes and wasted so much of their money on junk. She shouldn't let him make any more financial decisions going forward because he's ridiculous. Women really should stop having sex and creating families with men like this. Also, why does he get a personal car and she gets the family car? I would not squat out half a basketball team and then accept some rickety-ass luxury vehicle to drive them around in for 2 years. Agreed. I'm the mum, and when it came time to replace our car, I was vehemently against a minivan, and my husband really wanted one. We ended up with the full-size Explorer with 3 rows. I've had it for 11 years, and it is a true workhorse. But when we were looking, the Explorer was the only SUV in that size range that would have been comparable in storage and passenger capability to a van. I'm glad that they figured it out in the end. It's annoying that you have to kind of go through so much money and emotional efforts to get your partner to really see where you're coming from and realize their mistake. But hey, it's good that in the end, he did come through and do what is best for him and his family. I would love to have him post again and see what his perspective on him having a personal car and why she only gets a minivan is. That would be some interesting lore of that family, but hey, we can't have everything we want. I'm glad that they've come together and get a proper minivan. Good job, guys. Great work. Keep it up. Our next post is by user Heavy Illustrator 852, titled, My 37 male, wife, 35 female, had a threesome with her best friend and husband years ago, and they want to do it again. Now I don't want them around us anymore. I've known this for a long time, but when my wife was younger, she had a few threesomes with her best friend and her husband, then boyfriend. This was years before we even met, and she told me early in our relationship just so that there would be no secrets. I've never had a problem with my wife being around her best friend alone since the threesomes didn't involve much girl on girl, but more sharing her boyfriend. And for that reason, I've had trouble throughout our marriage being around both of them. I just have trouble having a normal conversation knowing that this guy has had sex with my wife. My wife doesn't think anything of it and is completely comfortable. It's just something that she did for a little while and then stopped because she wasn't into it anymore once the taboo thrill wore off. She can even talk about it with them as casually as she talks about a concert they went to. However, she doesn't do this when I'm around because she knows that it makes me uncomfortable. Anyway, we were all together last weekend, and her friend had gotten a little drunk and then brought it up. My wife quickly shut her down, but the impression I got was that there had been a lengthier conversation leading up to this that I didn't know about. Later on, my wife told me that her friend and husband had asked if she and I were interested in doing something. They were down for whatever that we were comfortable with, but my wife admitted that they really wanted her again, but with me watching. My wife knows there is no way in hell that I would be down for that, and neither would she. My wife stopped doing that with them for a reason, and that's before she got married and had kids. My wife has told me to just forget they said anything, but holy shit, how can I do that now? I swallowed being around them when these incidents were well within the past, but now that they're openly lusting for my wife, I don't know if I feel comfortable with her or me being around them. Am I wrong here? How do I navigate this? I don't want to tell my wife to break off her friendship, but something I feel needs to be done. In the comments, Norman Beats says, quote, they really wanted her again, but with me watching. These people don't care about your feelings at all. Right? It's like they're throwing him a bone, being able to watch so they can get access to the wife to add spark to their own sex life. As someone who's quite partial to a threesome with hubby, I would not be happy by this approach at all. No, this is insane, and the wife is out of her mind for even entertaining it. She bothered to bring it up for a reason. I will occasionally watch, but for a few minutes, if that. There is no way that I would agree and go into it with an understanding like the one in the post. In swinger circles, this is considered wife poaching and would be a reason to cut ties immediately. In the vanilla world, it is a more serious breach. You are a monogamous relationship, and that makes you out of bounds. Your wife is also not blameless here. She should have shut this down immediately. Explain that your trust is broken and you cannot feel comfortable with her friends and her interacting after this. She can process her reaction from there, and it'll tell you everything about the real strength of your relationship. As someone who's part of swinging culture, it's definitely in poor form to go after monogamous couples, and usually a bad idea to do so with friends, even if they're in the lifestyle. If you aren't comfortable with this, that should be the end of the discussion. That friendship needs to end, or your marriage will. She needs to choose wisely. This is the only effing answer. For God's sake, OP, have a damn spine and speak up for yourself. My opinion is that you were dumb to enter into a relationship with someone who was still close friends with them. You were even dumber for putting up with it when they would openly talk about it, and you are the dumbest now for not realizing what the solution is. Back up to the post, there is an edit. Thanks for all the comments. I'm glad that I'm not blowing this out of proportion, and my response is normal. For context, I do want to add that they all were together 3 times, and my wife stopped it simply because she stopped being into it. She only participated because her friend was bragging about her boyfriend's skill in the bedroom and insisted that she try it. She did, and she found that no amount of skill could overcome the fact that she wasn't very attracted to him. My wife also really isn't into girls. She's participated with her friend, but it was a first and last for her. Just not her thing. So I'm really not worried about her doing anything with them because she had ample opportunity before we met, and she passed. Also, a lot of people are criticizing my wife for not telling me about the conversation, but I'm actually fine with that. She said no for the both of us. I'm not angry at her for that. I'm angry at them for basically trying to cuck me. Yeah, I'd be angry with them for trying to cuck you as well. I can absolutely see where people are coming from with the angle of your wife should never have been entertaining this notion with them and she should have always been shutting the conversations down. I think there is room for grey area here, and I completely respect you for disagreeing with that, but if that's something that happened and it was funny to talk about in retrospect, I'd make jokes about it, but I wouldn't entertain it to be like, hey, let's talk about this in front of my husband when you get drunk and try and play that off as an acceptable thing. Those two enter a taboo swinging lifestyle that vanilla people are not going to be accepting of. Don't expect them to go to the degree of cuckoldry to fulfill your fantasies. What's wrong with you two people? Opie, I genuinely expect you to cut these people out of your life after such disrespect like that. I would not stand for it. I wouldn't even accept apologies. I'd be like, we're getting rid of them. And now, on to the update. So after I posted, I had a deeper conversation with my wife about her friends and expressed my discomfort about being around people that are lusting after my wife and fantasize about having sex with her in front of me. She said she understood how I felt, but told me that there was absolutely nothing that I should be concerned about. To my wife, her friend and her husband are not serious people. They're fun to be around, but that's it. She experimented with them in her early 20s, but she was a different person then. She was very sexually adventurous in college and right after, and did a lot of things that she'd never think of doing now. She said she's a 35-year-old married mother of 2 with a serious career, and she simply isn't interested in behaving like that anymore. Not to mention that she's happily married and she loves me. While I understood all of that, and I do trust her, I told her that my point still stands. I'm just not comfortable around them. My wife then asks if we could talk it out with her friends, and if after that talk I'm still uncomfortable, then she'll agree with whatever I'm comfortable with. So I agree, and we meet last night at our house. They both apologize and swear to never bring it up again. But I can tell that neither think of this as a big deal, and from their tone, it seems like they think that I'm being overly sensitive. So I raise that point, and they concede that they do think that I'm being silly. They tell me that the time they had with my wife was a very memorable experience that they wanted to experience again, and simply asked if my wife would be interested in participating with me or with my approval. They say that they would have been happy to allow me to participate in any way I liked, but did admit that their biggest fantasy was to basically double-team my wife while I watched. But my wife had no interest. They confirmed that she shut it down quickly. They brought it up later while they were drunk because they figured that maybe I would have some interest, and if I did, I could convince her to do it. My wife's friend then says that once I let go of my inhibitions, she guarantees that I would enjoy myself. How they think I would enjoy any experience that involves someone else screwing my wife, whether I'm actively involved or not, is beyond me. I'm about to say this when my wife jumps in. She tells me that I will not be enjoying anything. She says she is not 22 anymore and has babies asleep upstairs. She tells them that neither of us will be screwing anyone else, and she thought that she made that very clear. It got a little awkward after that, and they left shortly after. My wife hugged me when they left and said she was sorry for asking me to talk with them. That's not how she expected that to go. We talked a little more and she admitted that hearing their stories is a fun escape and even got flattered when they would tell her how much they loved being with her, but admitted that it's become a little too real and she couldn't stand the thought of watching me with someone else and understands how I feel. So we agreed to take a good long break from seeing them. My wife isn't going to completely cut her best friend out of her life, but we're going to manage how we see them. No more drinking, no more her alone with the both of them in our home or theirs. Shopping, lunch, and similar activities is where she's going to keep the friendship, and I can live with that. In the comments, Crazy Female Dog 2000 says, "Your wife is a 1 in a million and didn't deserve any of the hate that she got in your last post. Neither of you have done anything wrong, and you guys handled this situation perfectly." And OP says, "Thanks. I never blamed her. She's been upfront with me from the beginning of our relationship about the things that she has done." When asked if he's sure that his wife doesn't want to have threesomes anymore, OP says, "My wife had ample opportunity before we met to do this again with them. She stopped it after 3 times, and they tried for an entire year before we met to convince her to do it again, but she said no. It just wasn't something that she was into. The girl-on-girl stuff isn't her thing, and she isn't very attracted to the husband. Once the taboo of the whole thing wore off, she was no longer interested. That couple is gross. Consent isn't difficult to understand. No means no. If they're engaging in a sexual lifestyle, they should understand that more than anyone. The fact that they chose to repeatedly ignore OP's boundaries is worrisome and disgusting." But what if we got you drunk first? Ugh, I'm glad that they decided the wife will no longer be alone with them or drinking with them. Who knows what may happen if the wife were to get drunk while alone with them. Just trying to imagine that conversation. "Hey man, you're a great friend. My wife and I were wondering if we can dick down your wife while you watch in the corner. Like friends. It's like you're a part of it." I'd have to pull up the Uno reverse. "You know, I'm not the one to ride the pine. How about I nail the male in the ass while he's going at it?" Until they reverse it on you and say they're into that. Quotes, "I know she said no, but what if her husband says yes for her?" Gross. They are called unicorn hunters in kink/non-monogamy/swinger communities, and they tend to have sleazy and predatory reputations for reasons like this. Even the ones that are not tend to understand why they have to fight against the negative stereotype. They sound very sleazy, and hearing details of that conversation with OP, it came off as very predatory and manipulative. I don't understand why OP's wife wants anything to do with them at all. Best friend or not, these people are creepy AF. OP got a vibe from them and knew that something was off. Both he and his wife should go no contact. Nothing good will result in staying friends with even just the best friend. I think at the end of the day, it's one of those situations of like, I respect my partner, and if she wants to remain in contact with them, then I'm not going to push her to do something that she's not comfortable with. As much as they were trying to push me and her to do something that we weren't comfortable with, we sorted that situation out. I think it goes beyond the realms of my ability to shut something like their friendship down. I don't think they've done enough in this situation to warrant OP trying to force that issue, and I think something like an ultimatum in this situation would be insane. But hey, I'm not married. I'm not in the midst of a situation like that, so maybe it gets worse in the future, who knows. But I think that they did solve this one very well, so props to them for that.